Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming to tonight's meeting. Sorry, we're a little slow getting started. Just trying to help with some technical difficulties, and I'll try again. But my name's Laura Arsenault. I'm the ARB administrator with the county. I'm going to go ahead and pass call it the electronic gavel on to John Burns. So he's the chair of the ARB, so he can go ahead and open the meeting. We're going to go ahead and go through some motions related to the COVID pandemic and why we're meeting electronically, and then we'll give you some house rules, and then we'll move forward with the meeting agenda. So, John, if you want to go ahead. John, if you're speaking, we can't hear you. Are you there? There you go. We can hear you now.
Thank you. Good evening. Welcome to the July 9th, 2020 meeting of the Fairfax County Architectural Review Board. I'd like to call the meeting to order. At the beginning of the meeting, we have to pass a series of motions, as Laura explained, related to the COVID-19 pandemic. And so I will do so. To conduct this meeting wholly electronically and to effectuate both the emergency procedures authorized by FOIA, the ARB needs to make certain findings and determinations for the record. It's a bit cumbersome, so I ask in advance for your patience. This is number one, the audibility of members' voices. First, because each member of this ARB is participating in this meeting from a separate location, you must verify that a quorum of members is participating and that each member's voice is clear, audible, and at an appropriate volume for all the other members. Accordingly, I'm going to conduct a roll call and ask that each ARB member participating in this meeting state your name, the location from which you are participating. I ask that each of you pay close attention to ensure that you can hear each of your colleagues. And following this roll call, we will vote to establish that every member can indeed hear every other member. And so I will call the roll based on the people who I believe are attending the meeting tonight. Michelle Aubrey.
Yes, I'm here. I'm in my residence right now.
Thank you. Christopher Daniel.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm here at my home in Reston. Thank you.
Samantha Huang. Samantha, are you on mute? Perhaps not here yet. Let's go on.
Sorry about that.
Sorry?
Sorry about that. I just realized I didn't mute it. Yes.
Okay.
This is
You're
Samantha.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
This is Samantha from Reston.
Thank you. Stephen Kalinsky. Steve, are you on mute? Okay, I'll move on.
This is Laura. I don't see Mr. Kalinsky on here.
Okay, and my understanding is Susan Nutkins is not going to participate tonight. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Kay Orr.
I'm here at my residence.
Thank you, Kay. I understand Joe Plumpy is not planning to be here tonight. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Jason Zellman.
I'm present at my home in Burke.
Okay, thank you. At this point, I will pass the virtual gavel to the Vice Chairman.
John, you missed me.
I'm sorry?
John, you forgot Elise.
Oh my goodness, I did. I had it written down. I apologize, Elise. Elise Murray, you're there, right?
I am here in my residence in front of the circa 1966 Encyclopedia Britannica.
Excellent, thank you. Okay.
I'm sorry, John, real quick, this is Nicole. It looks like Steve is on, but he is not able to join as a panelist, Laura.
Aha.
Okay, I will get on that.
I see. He's got a question mark by his name. Can he unmute himself?
I don't think so. I think when you're an attendee, the host has to do it.
Okay.
All right, you should be on there now.
Mr. Klinsky, are you with us tonight?
Yes, Mr. Burns, I am, and I'm at my office in Alexandria. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I believe we have now heard from everyone who is present for the meeting tonight. And I will pass the virtual gavel to Vice Chairman Daniel so that I may be heard to make the requisite motion. Mr. Daniel?
Yeah, I will accept it.
Okay. I move that each member's voice is adequately heard by each other member of this ARB.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, seconded by Ms. Orr. All those in favor respond by indicating aye.
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 All those opposed, like sign. All right, the motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Number 2 on the list of motions. This is a quorum. As determined by the roll call, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 members, is that correct, Laura, by my count? Present for the, oh, I forgot to count myself. We have 9 members, sorry. ARB present and therefore satisfy the ARB quorum minimum. The ARB's bylaws state that a minimum of 6 members are required to determine the quorum. It is so moved.
All right. I have a motion on the table. Second.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Zellman. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Hearing none, it passes unanimously.
Okay. Motion number 3. Third, having established that each member's voice may be heard by every other member, we must next establish the nature of the emergency that compels these emergency procedures. The fact that we are meeting electronically, what type of electronic communication is being used, and how we have arranged for public access to this meeting. Therefore, I move that the state of emergency caused by the COVID-19 pandemic makes it unsafe for this ARB to physically assemble and unsafe for the public to physically attend any such meeting, and that as such, FOIA's usual procedures, which require the physical assembly of the ARB and the physical presence of the public, cannot be implemented safely or practically. I further move that the ARB may conduct this meeting electronically through WebEx, a county virtual meeting platform, and available for access to the ARB county website, or through phone at 1-800-408-418-9388 with access code 129-336-8432. It is so moved.
John, might I request that we strike from the record that it's not a 1-800 number, it is just 1-408-418-9388?
If I said 800, that was my mistake. It's 1-408-418-9388. Thank you for the correction.
No problem. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Zellman, I believe, or Mr. Klinsky. I could not tell.
Mr. Kalinsky.
Mr. Klinsky. Okay, it was so fast. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on. Next one is need to dispense with FOIA's usual procedures to ensure continuity in government and continue operations. Finally, it is next required that all matters addressed on today's agenda are statutorily required or necessary to continue operations in the discharge of this board's lawful purposes, duties, and responsibilities. It is so moved.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
That was you, Ms. Orr?
Sobering.
Ms. Albrecht, okay. Thank you. We have a second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes.
Okay, draft motion number 5. The ARB needs to determine how long each member of the public will be able to speak during the public comment periods. The public will be allowed to comment after the consent agenda items and after each action item, as is standard ARB practice. The draft motion is, I move that each member of the public will have 3 minutes to speak.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Zellman. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed, like sign. Hearing none, the motion passes.
Okay, I believe that constitutes the motions that we need to pass to be able to conduct the meeting in a virtual environment. So, Laura, do you want to explain the WebEx meeting information and rules of the road?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Burns. Thank you, everyone that's on standby as an attendee. I will ask that right now you're in listen only mode. And if you have a question during the presentation or need to get one of our attention, you can use either the chat function on the right side of the screen or the Q&A function. We have a staff member monitoring that if need be. As a reminder, this presentation is being recorded and will be uploaded in 10 days according to the county's requirements. If you're experiencing technical issues, please feel free to reach out to one of the staff members or myself, or contact WebEx technical support at 1-866-779-3293. I will say I got a message that attendee Michael Norton is logged on twice. I would recommend that you log out one of the methods if you can and log back in. That way we will not get any additional feedback. So if there are any participants that need to get our attention, there's a raise your hand function as well, or please do chat and staff will be monitoring that for the meeting. Other than that, Mr. Burns, we can go ahead and start the regular meeting process with the statement of purpose.
Okay, thank you. The first action item tonight will be approval of the agenda. We have an agenda was revised as of July 6, 2020. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
John, this is, do we normally do the statement of purpose?
Yeah. Yes, we do. I had asked Michelle Aubrey if she'd be willing to read that tonight. Michelle, are you able to? Take it off mute.
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
The statement of purpose and intent of historic overlay districts. Historic overlay districts are created for the purpose of promoting the general welfare, education, economic prosperity, and recreational pleasure of the public through the perpetuation of those general areas or individual structures and premises that have been officially designated by the Board of Supervisors as having historical, cultural, architectural, or archaeological significance. Regulations within such districts are intended to protect against destruction of or encroachment upon such areas, structures, and premises. Encourage uses which will lead to their continuance, conservation, and improvement in a manner appropriate to the preservation of the cultural, social, economic, political, architectural, or archaeological heritage of the county, to prevent creation of environmental influences adverse to such purposes, and to assure that new structures and uses within such districts will be in keeping with the character to be preserved and enhanced. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate that. Okay, so now back to what I was trying to do. This is approval of the agenda. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as modified on July 6th.
So moved by Ms. Aubrey.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second by Ms. Orr. All in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed, say nay. We have an agenda. Laura, are there guests that you'd like to introduce, perhaps members of the staff?
That's a good question. Hold on one second. I think most of the people I see signed on are related to one of the applications tonight. We have Denise Dressel, county staff with us, Nicole Brannan's with us as well, and Kira Davis for county staff. Looking at the list, there's a couple other people here, but I think they're all related to an application. So maybe you can ask about guests at the end, unless we have somebody raise their hand or type in the chat box that they're a guest. But from what I've seen on the list, it looks like it's mainly people related with the applications. But let me try this too. I'm going to unmute the attendees real quick, and if somebody is, or I think they can unmute themselves. No? Okay, I'm going to unmute the attendees real quick. And if you're not involved with one of the applications, please say so and introduce yourself, and we'll try to go through it that way. Okay, hold on one second. All right. Is there anybody? I'm going to mute everybody. Never mind, that didn't work. But if you are a message, or send us a message or use the raise your hand function on the side of the screen, and we'll ask again at a little later time once we get through some of these cases if there's anyone that needs to speak, and we have staff monitoring it. Okay, let's go ahead, John, with the agenda.
Okay. The first action item is a consent calendar. We have one item on the consent calendar. It is item ARB 20-CTV-01, amendment for proposal for modifications of a previously ARB approved signage located at 5652 Pickwick Road, Centerville, tax map 054-4 lot B1. This is within the Centerville Historic Overlay District. And is there a second on this?
Oh, was that a motion?
That was, yes, excuse me. Is there a motion on this?
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Daniel.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB recommend approval for the following consent item as submitted for the July 9th, 2020 ARB meeting. ARB 20-CTV-01, amendment proposal for replacement signage at CVS store. Upon review of the materials, the proposals are found to meet the requirements of zoning ordinance 7-200 historic overlay districts.
Thank you. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Second by Mr. Klinsky, I believe. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
And any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Thank you. The second action item is ARB-18-LFK-06, amendment proposal for architectural modifications to the existing Mackerel House at 1011 and 1013 Turkey Run Road, tax map 22-3 lots 50 and 51. This is in the Langley Port Historic Overlay District. We have, I believe, Mr. Jabori here to present tonight. Are you here, sir?
This is Laura. I just promoted him to a panelist, so he should be able to speak and share his screen. And Mr. Jabori, do you have anybody else here with you that you would like me to?
Laura, can you hear me? Can everybody hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, but unfortunately, he's having technical difficulties to sign up for the meeting.
Okay.
And unfortunately, although I forwarded him the invitation, do you recall if you sent him the invitation?
For who?
For Mr. Addison Nottingham?
That doesn't sound right? But I can send them the link right now. That doesn't sound familiar, but let me go ahead and send
He
the
is
link
having
now.
some internet issues, but
Okay.
regardless, I have him on the phone. In response to the last month's meeting, with some of the comments regarding the windows, we forwarded you a package that the supplement included the windows that we are hoping to be able to use with the house. And we took some pictures of the existing windows, most of which are indeed not considered historic. I don't know if everyone had the opportunity to look at those pictures, to notice that the windows definitely do not look original. However, in the package, we are sending pictures of the existing cove and Dutch lap sidings and the windows that we're going to use. I do sincerely apologize that I cannot speak with total knowledge because I'm not the architect, but he can get on, unfortunately. Laura, did you send him a link?
I did not, but he can call in if he'd like to.
Okay.
I have a couple of call-in users.
Addison. Can you write this number down? Area code 408.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
418.
Mm-hmm.
9388.
9388.
And the passcode is 129
Mm-hmm.
503
Mm-hmm.
2814.
2814. There's also a call-in number for this meeting as well, that Mr. Burns shared at the beginning of the meeting, and I can provide that to you as well.
So you and I are going to hang up, I guess?
No.
No. I'm talking to the architect.
Oh.
I'm sorry. I'm talking to two different people.
Nicole Brannon actually has the information of the meeting up, so I'm going to give her the presenter mode real quick, and then you can see what the numbers and information is. Hold on one second.
Okay.
Give it to
He hung up on me. That means he's trying to call in to the meeting, hopefully. I do apologize for the confusion.
Does he have the numbers to call into the meeting?
I just gave him it, yes.
Okay.
Isn't it 408-418-9388? Yes.
Yes, and then the code, yep.
Yes.
Somebody just popped on, so I'm going to see.
That's me.
Hi, Mr. I'm sorry, Mr. Dvory. Who is it? Mr. Nottingham. Hi, Mr. Nottingham. Okay, we have him unmuted and he's able to speak.
Okay. I'm not sure where we've gotten to. I apologize for not having heard the prior discussion. But in the last, I guess, our work session, we had fielded some questions in regards to the age of the windows and if any had been believed to be original, and if there was a way that we could retain any of those in the new, the renovated version of the house. Since that time, we've had a visit to the property and ascertained there were several windows that looked to be potentially the frames haven't been original, but looks like the glass had all been changed and are in desperate need of repairs. Even there was several modern type windows also in the mix of I believe glass or aluminum frames as well. So we're proposing to maintain consistency by doing a replacement of all those versus trying to patch together and repair a few of those older units that may have been original to the house. On the side that used to be inboard to the other addition, there was an inquiry, I believe, by the chairman whether that there were other evidence of other openings in that wall, and we were not able to ascertain that at that time. I believe that was the remainder of the questions. I guess there was some concern about which materials we would be using, and we provided more information in that submission package. Maintaining a smooth finish on the Boral trim and the cove lap siding that was matching the existing.
Pardon me for interrupting, Laura. Do you know if there we go. This was a question. Can the documents be presented? And do you know, Laura, if the pictures are going to be presented also of the windows that we took?
Were they in the submission package?
Yes.
Okay. We have one of our.
It was a different folder because I did not put everything in one folder. It would have gotten too big. I sent a folder that only had pictures.
Okay, let's see if I have it. The ARB members, were you able to the photos as submitted?
I did not see any photos.
Okay.
No.
Nicole, I'm going to try to look for the photos. So if there's anything on the presentation that you want me to go to, just let me know.
Apologies, I only have audio, so I'm not sure what you're even reviewing at this time. The application virtually is the same. I guess we clarified what materials were going in each location as part of the submission package with the materials key.
Addison, we are currently looking at page 3 of 10 of the supplemental information revised, which you have boxed at M3 and M6, and there are various pictures of windows, roof peaks, and doors.
The supplemental was provided just to give for information, to provide information on the materials proposed for the exterior skin of the property. I think the first one was the, although it's not the exact 10 metal embossed shingle, we need to get a roofer up there to get to the roof to actually pull one off to actually do a match to what was there.
What Addison is talking about is the very first page, 2 pages above what we are all looking at right now.
1 second, let me get to it.
There we go. Yes, that's what he, Addison, we're looking at the first page of the supplement.
Got it. Yeah, as we had been, that's just it for an example. That's not the actual product. Or the design. We'd need to match up to what was there is what the intention would be. The second page obviously is the cove lap or the Dutch lap siding that is within fractions of an inch difference from the existing that was below the cedar shake or wood shake siding that had been applied at a later date. That's M2, material 2, which keys to our elevations. Understood previously there was some desire to understand what each material was going to be, so we tried to clarify that on the elevations as well as through the supplementals. This next slide, I guess 3 of 10, is the proposed flat stock trim for the corner boards. So pretty much the exposed trim we propose to use. This is also an AZEK inert material product that would not be a rotting material. This is a rot resistant. And I think on the key on the elevations, we indicated all of these to be smooth finish, so there was no ambiguity or mix-ups at a later date in the field. The next slide is M5, M4, M7, and M5. These are the proposed decking boards, also for the wood deck out front. They're tongue and groove AZEK product that is also rot resistant, rot and fade resistant. And also for the treads of the steps, several steps down to grade. Then the next 5 of 10 is the windows. We're proposing to use that double hung product as a replacement by Lowen with a putty profile, 5/8 of an inch, low E double glazed glass. The next page, I'm sure you're all familiar. I think we looked at it last time. 7 of 10 is the photo from 1918 of the house, showing the little porch on the front, which we discussed last time that we're bringing back to the project, and the cove lap siding. Here's the next one is the blow up of the existing cove lap siding, which we're in disrepair in several spots and also missing. So we're proposing to replace it throughout with a matching product, the AZEK. 9 and 10 is just the flat stock casing, which we would be matching in the AZEK product. And then the 10 of 10 is the Embossed Ten Roofing, which links back to the first page. As you can tell, that's what's on the house. We believe it's maybe not original, but that's a good material maybe to retain.
Okay, is that your presentation?
Yes.
Okay,
I guess the plans more or less remain the same from the previous time. It's just clarifications to the materials as requested by the board.
Okay, thank you. The first question is, are there members of the public who would like to address the ARB in this particular application? Laura, can you keep an eye out if anybody raises their hand?
Yes, I will. I don't see any at this point, but I will let you know if that changes.
Okay, that be the case, then I will go through the roll call of members of the ARB for any questions or comments they might have. I'll start with Michelle Aubrey, please.
I'd like to thank the presenters for the information, the follow-up, and I have no questions for them. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Daniel.
Again, I'll echo Ms. Aubrey's comments. Thank you to the presenters for working through this interesting technological time we're in. So I guess I'm trying to understand the presentation about the windows. From what I understood that was said, we've evaluated that there are many of the windows were not original. There are some remnants of what might be original, but the materials, from the architect's perspective, were not considered enough to salvage. Is that the understanding that I was coming away with?
Correct.
Beyond that, I mean, I appreciate you bringing in the materials. Obviously, that you're matching the shingles on the roof, and I don't have a great deal of questions at this current time. I'm honestly just happy to see if this house is going to get a chance at life, because I think in previous reviews for previous projects, it seemed like it was going to be condemned to being, putting on the chopping block. So I'm happy to see that it's going to get a new life on it. I don't have any further comments at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Samantha Huang?
Yes. Thank you for the presentation. I have no comment.
Okay. Mr. Kalinsky?
There we go. Sorry about that. I'm satisfied with the changes that have been made over the course of the couple of workshops here. So I'm fine with this. Thank you.
Okay, Elise Murray.
I want to thank the applicant for hanging in on what has been a very long road. I'm very happy to see where it's going now. That's the end.
Okay, Kate Orr.
I think it looks lovely. Thank you so much for your hard work.
Mr. Zellman.
Thanks for the presentation, but no questions.
Okay, I have a question. Nicole, could you go back to the photograph of the cove siding? It's an end view of a piece. There you go. And that one, we clearly see that you're able to take dimensions and such on that. I'm wondering how close is the proposed replacement siding to the actual dimension of what we're seeing in this photograph?
Yeah, it's remarkably close, which is very unusual when you have a number of the difference between wood versus the other. But I'm assuming they patterned it off of the differences. I believe the cove is a little bit different, and I believe the flat portion, the cove on the original, where I guess it was hand done, is a little bit more or a little bit longer. And the overall length, I believe, of those are within a half an inch of the modern replacement product.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that they were not dramatically different because that can affect the visual appearance quite a bit. Other than that, I will echo the other members of the board. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for specifying that the trim will be installed smooth side out. That was one of my questions from last time around. Thank you for verifying the age of the existing windows. It's for me, my purposes, adequate justification that they can all be replaced without compromising the historic character of the property. That's the end of questions from the board. I would entertain a motion with regard to this particular application.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Daniel.
So Chairman, I move that the ARB approve ARB 18-LFK-06 amendment located at 1011 and 1013 Turkey Run Road, tax map 22-3, double paren 1, 50 and 51, located in the Langley Fork Historic Overlay District for the proposed architectural modifications to the existing Mackle Hall house as submitted and presented at the July 9th, 2020 ARB meeting. Upon review of the materials, the proposed is found to meet the requirements of zoning ordinance 7-200 historic overlay districts.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second to this motion?
I'll second.
Okay, who was that? That was
Ms. Orr.
Ms. Orr, thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
And any opposed, say nay. Hearing none, motion carries.
Thank you very much, everybody.
And good luck with the project. Look forward to seeing some construction photographs someday, maybe.
And I'm also working on something else that we may be seeing each other again.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Next action item is ARB 20-CTV-02, proposal for architectural modifications to the Harrison House, located at 13930 Braddock Road, Centerville, tax map 54-4, double paren 1, lot 41 in the Centerville Historic Overlay District. Is Ms. Quinn and Mr. Decio here?
It's just me today. Unfortunately, Mr. Decio is unable to make it.
Okay, and Nicole, can you put up whatever presentation they want to share with us tonight?
I can, unless Danielle wants to do it herself. Either works.
No, if Laura, if you could put it up for us, that would be great. Thank you. And if you could forward on to the next page. So this project was before the board last month as a workshop item, and we've come back this time with our plans boiled down a bit more. So on the Harrison house, what we're looking to do is replace the back deck that is completely rotted through and no longer stable. So as you can see from these plans, we'll be securing the joists that support the deck, be taking out all of the deck rails as well as the footing on the deck and replacing that with identical wood, sealing it and painting it with a natural sealant in order to preserve the integrity and the historic nature of the deck as it has been. Our plan is that when the deck is finished, it will look identical to how it has for the past few hundred years that the house has been there. The concrete patio that's below as the foundation won't change. We'll just go ahead and seal that to keep any water from getting inside. Also provided in the packet that was provided to the board is our materials list. As you can see from that list, all of the deck posts that go in will be cut to the exact dimensions of the ones that are currently there. Nothing will change as far as the size and structure goes. The other proposal before the board is for the chimney. What is the main thing that's changed on the chimney is once our architect came back and looked at it again, he put a level on the chimney. And initially it was believed that the chimney was pulling away from the house and there was concern that the chimney was going to collapse. However, the issue is that the house is actually pulling away from the chimney. The chimney remains level, whereas the house is starting to tilt to the side. To resolve the issue of the gap between the chimney and the house, we plan to pour concrete in that will not only help seal the gap between the two, but help anchor the house onto the chimney. Once the concrete's poured, it will be covered with a sealant to prevent water from getting in between and to prevent water from getting into the house. It'll all be a natural stone color so that you won't be able to tell a big difference from the existing stone chimney and the gap that's being filled. I'm happy to answer any questions that the board has.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there any member of the public who would like to address the ARB in this particular application? So if you'd indicate to Laura by raising your hand or saying something in the chat box.
I don't see anything now, Mr. Burns, but I'll let you know.
So then I will do the roll call of members of the board. Ms. Aubrey.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. When I read through the proposal, I was pleased to see the work that's being proposed to repair the deck in the back and to with the chimney. But I saw that there was a lot of other work proposed in a third document. But I understand that all that work is not necessarily requiring permission from the county. Is that correct?
That is correct.
This is Laura Arsenault. If the work does not rise to the level of a permit, that's not something we would normally have oversight of. But we could, they presented it as a courtesy to us.
I mean, because there were a lot of other proposals in that scope of work. It must have been prepared for an outside party to bid on that looked like they were, to do repair work on the front and on windows and lots of other aspects of the structure. Is that true?
So the owner of the house owns a construction company, and it was his architect that put the plans together. And in doing so, because of the work that architect is used to doing, he did a complete plan for the house so we could go in and do everything at one time as opposed to piecemealing this. And so when he submitted the plans to me, this is what I got. And I wanted to forward that on to the board so that the board was aware of all the improvements that we intend to make to the house to show that we're not just doing what is required of us. We want to go above and beyond and restore the house to its original nature.
Okay, thank you. We're glad to hear it. Thank you very much.
And Ms. Quinn, correct me if I'm wrong, but part of this was due to a code violation, and the chimney and the deck were the first things to be required corrected by the code violation. Is that right? And that the other work would be either at a separate time or a later time, but this was the first two things to be done to bring the building into compliance. Is that correct?
That is correct. There were a number of code violations, some of which have been corrected, but the two major ones that require approval from the ARB are the deck and the chimney.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Moving on, Mr. Daniel.
Thank you to the applicant for coming back to us with the information, and I'm happy to see that, just like the last one, I'm happy to see the work happening. And thank you for Ms. Albury for asking the question, because I obviously, when looking through the design plans, noticed all the other work. I'm happy to see that that's occurring, and thank you, Laura, for clarifying that what is necessitating the permit, what we're reviewing. That being said, what I'm seeing on the drawings is noting matching in kind and things like that we'd want to see anyways for materials replacement and repair of a historic structure. So I'm overall pleased. So thank you.
Okay. Ms. Fine?
I don't have a comment.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Kalinsky.
Okay, well, first of all, thank the applicant. I think this is a good response to our workshop from last month. Very encouraged in a lot that I see. Though I do have two items, and Ms. Arsenault, you may need to correct me if they're in our purview or not, but the five pond, the request to replace the balusters with five pond and to replace the decking with a composite decking, are they part of our approval?
I believe that anything related to the decking, and I believe it was the chimney that were in the notice of violation. That's what's kind of, this is like a phase 1, phase 2 type thing. So the code violation and things in the code violations were the chimney and the deck. So if there's something with the deck and you have a design issue with that, that would be within the scope of this approval.
All right, I think it would be a mistake to use composite materials and kind of dilute the historic nature of this pretty well preserved house. Obviously, it needs some maintenance, but the most of the historical material is intact, and I applaud the applicant for matching and cutting and reusing beams where possible. But if I were to have my say here, I would say we do not allow the five pond or the composite decking. The other issue, and apparently not in our purview here, and it's not necessarily as pertinent, but the gutters aren't the appropriate style for the house, but it is an item that's easily reversible, so I'm therefore not so concerned with that aspect of it. But overall, great, and the in-kind, that all the terminology is so much better than before. I'm happy to see this. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Kalinsky. Ms. Murray.
My colleague on the History Commission from Centerville is very happy that the chimney will remain in place, intact, not changed at all. I share Mr. Kalinsky's concerns about the man-made materials for the decking and railings.
Okay. Ms. Orr?
No comment.
Okay. Mr. Zellman?
Ms. Quinn, do you know if your client has a position on the materials for the deck? Are they wedded to a composite material, or what's their position?
The reason we went with the composite material is just so that it lasts longer, so we don't worry about having to seal it consistently every year and worry about it falling apart. Another issue that we've had with the house, because it's not occupied, is people breaking into the house and, again, just to make a more solid foundation, solid structure, put the composite deck on. And I know a lot of the composites these days mirror what wood looks like.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Okay, I have a question regarding you mentioned in the reinforcement of the connection between the chimney and the house that you would be pouring concrete there. And that, I assume that's at grade or at foundation level to tie the base of the chimney to the foundation of the house. But above that point where the house is primarily wood, is the chimney displaced from the house? If that's the case, how are you going to close that gap?
There is a slight gap that runs up the side of the house between the chimney and the siding. We were planning on putting a cement and sealing the side of the house and then placing cement in there to draw the two together.
So you're going to pour cement between the chimney and the wood frame house?
That is my understanding from the architect after sealing the side of the house where it was going.
Okay, and will that be visible from the exterior?
It will be slightly visible from the exterior. After all the sealing is done, we're just going to put stone over top of it to track what is currently there all the way up the chimney to the roofing.
Okay, and what is the purpose of using concrete as that material as opposed to bridging the gap with, say, wood like the rest of the house?
If we were to bridge the gap using wood, then the side of the house isn't going to be flush. It's going to protrude out some instead of just making it look as if the chimney was a wider structure than it actually is.
Okay, but if the gap filler material is concrete, and what is the material? Forgive me for not knowing what the material of the chimney is, but what is the material of the chimney?
The chimney is just a stone and concrete
stone.
structure. Yes.
So it will look like there's simply a wider mortar joint when you're finished with this treatment. Is that the intent?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay. All right. I understand that. Thank you for the explanation. I do share Mr. Kalinsky's concern that Ms. Murray echoed about the use of man-made materials in a very visible part of the deck. I understand your concern there, but without access to the owner to actually answer the question tonight, I'm a little perplexed as how we might deal with that issue that's been raised.
Mr. Chairman, I'll note on the document that was sent, it does have the line, if acceptable, install composite. So that does imply that there was a recognition that it might not be acceptable, but I don't know where that's coming from.
If we need to use wood in order to get the ARB's approval, then we will use wood, the same type of pressure treated wood that we're using for the posts.
Okay. Mr. Quincy, this was the issue that initially you raised. Would that be an acceptable solution? You're on mute.
Okay. Can you run it by me one more time?
Okay, my apologies. I will repeat. Mr. Daniel pointed out that in these submittal materials, they said use of man-made materials on the deck and the rails, if acceptable. And Ms. Quinn suggested that they would use pressure-treated wood as they're using in other components of the deck. And my question is, would that answer your concerns?
Yeah, that pressure-treated wood, not ideal, but would be acceptable over 5-pon or engineered lumber, yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, with those concerns expressed and questions answered, would someone like to make a motion on this particular application?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Zellman.
I will make an attempt. Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB approve ARB 20-CTV-02 located at 13930 Braddock Road, Centerville, tax map 54-4, double paren 141 in the Centerville Historic Overlay District for the proposal for architectural modifications to the Harrison House is submitted and presented at the July 9th, 2020 ARB meeting, subject to the following amendment, that pressure treated wood be used as the material for the deck. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet requirements of the zoning ordinance 7-200 historic overlay districts.
Is there a second to that motion?
I can second that motion.
Mr. Kalinsky. Mr. Kalinsky, you'd also have raised concerns about the rail material. Mr. Zellman specifically mentioned the deck being. Do you want to propose a friendly amendment to include the rail as well?
Okay. Yes, I'd like to do that. So,
is that acceptable to the maker of the motion, Mr. Zellman?
That is acceptable.
Okay. Okay. So we have now a slightly modified motion on the floor. It's been moved and seconded. A friendly amendment approved by both the motion maker and the seconder. So any further discussion on this motion? Hearing none, I will call the question. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Kim.
Thank you, everyone.
Next action item is ARB 19-LFK-03, amendment or proposal for modifications to a single-family residential dwelling located 1004 Goat Hill Lane, McLean, tax map 022-3, double paren 08, lot 5 in the Langley Port Historic Overlay District. Is Mr. Hughes with us tonight?
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, yes, sir.
Okay. Do you have a presentation that we can put up for you?
We do.
Do you want us to share it or are you sharing it yourself?
I can do it. John Parker's trying to do it right now.
Okay, just let me know if you can't and I can pop it up.
Okay. Where's the share? I can't.
Hold on one second. Let me give you the reins here.
Okay.
Okay, you should have it now.
All right. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
All right, awesome. Okay, thank you. If you remember, we were before you, I guess about a year ago with this project, and it was approved. And subsequently, after almost a year, the building permit was just approved with some site difficulties. So in that time frame, our client, in discussing the project with his realtor, came to the conclusion that they should make some interior changes, and especially on the second floor, or the larger ones, with minor interior changes on the lower floors. The interior changes on the upper level do affect the dormers, and we changed the shapes in some cases from shed dormers to gable dormers, but all within keeping, we think, with the guidelines of the original jurisdiction. So I guess the way we thought we should present it was just go through our original presentation and show you sort of the before and after changes. Again, the changes are basically generated from the inside and reflected in some cases on the outside. We think to a minor degree, but the major portion of those changes are with a couple of the dormers on the upper level. So we'll just go through it. So this first slide here, which I think you can see, just to remind you, it's on Dogue Hill Lane. It's that yellow lot there, number 3. It's long, elongated along the cul-de-sac there. Okay, John Parker. So the original floor plan in the basement, after some talk again with the realtor, it was proposed that we actually enlarge the space below the loggia, the upper story loggia. So if I flip to the next one, you'll see in the back here, sort of under the loggia, we've increased the floor space, just increasing the square footage of the house. Again, if you remember, this is a spec house to be built and sold. So the idea was that it would better serve the clientele, the marketplace. So this is a minor change. This change is not something you can see on the exterior at all. It's totally underground in the basement. 2. So on the main level, there's very minor changes, very, very minor. On the right side of the back, there's a study. We simply moved the windows a little bit wider. Same size windows, just slid them a little bit wider within the room to make a larger center built-in cabinet. That's all. And if you focus on that study in the back, right, we flip to the, I'm sorry, I called it the study, to library in the back there. If you flip to the next one, these windows just slightly moved out to the front and rear wall a little bit, not very much, within a few inches. Conversely, on the main level, in the kitchen, the 2 windows on the left side elevation around the range, we kept them in the same spot. We simply made them slightly larger, slightly wider windows. I believe they're the same height. That's the only changes on this level. Oh, I'm sorry. There is one more change. On the garage, it's kind of hard to see here. On the back, because we've added 3 windows, but these are transom windows set high on the wall. So they're not, they're shown dashed in on the concrete retaining wall of the garage rear wall. So you'll see those in the elevation. I don't know if you can see them very well there, but there are 3 windows added there just to get daylight into the garage. And that's on the back of the house. On the upper level, the main change had to do with the enlarging the master bedroom suite and taking into the master bedroom suite, bedroom number, what is that number? Let's see. Bedroom number 2. Yeah, so bedroom number 2 got absorbed into a master bedroom suite that was laid out in another way to make it a better bedroom, basically, where we moved the sleeping area to the rear wall, to the rear yard. So there's a better view, nicer rear yard than just have a side view. And then, and conversely move the closets around, and where the bedroom number 2 became a larger master bathroom. So in effect, on this floor, the change was we went from 4 children's bedrooms in a master suite to 3 children's bedrooms in a master suite. That was the main generator that generated the changes on the outside, because some window dormer locations changed. And on the right side of the house here, one other thing we did on the upper level, it was suggested by the realtor that we add a window to the laundry room. The initial scheme approved did not have a window in the laundry room, so we added a small dormer in kind, like the other small dormers, shed dormer into the laundry room, and that's on the left side elevation. We'll see those together as we move through here. You see right now the original roof plan. Basically, in this case, on the original plans, all the dormers were shed dormers. Again, most of the dormers stay in the same place. There has been the ones on the right side changed location slightly, and we thought it was better to make those gable dormers. And we added on the left side small shed dormer. So here you can see the front elevation. The top is the before, the below is the after, the proposed. And the only change you can see here is really on the upper right side of the house, of the roof, where before we had a shed dormer. And what we proposed to do were gable dormers on that side. The gable dormers afford us a nicer volume of space into the master bedroom suite proper and the walk-in closet, her walk-in closet. So you can see the right side elevation here. This is the elevation that presents itself to the cul-de-sac. The upper original elevation had shed dormers. It had 2. The lower proposed elevation also has 2 dormers. They've kind of reversed because the bedroom and the closets have changed positions, basically. And gable dormers for this proposed elevation, again, because it makes it for a nicer master bedroom suite on the inside. We have a cathedral ceiling in there. On the rear elevation, the upper one again is the original elevation we had, and then on the lower proposed elevation, again, because of the changes proposed on the inside. Let me see. So if I look at the lower proposed elevation, the far left upper roof, we again have a gable dormer in place of a shed dormer that was there before. In the back, above the main entry foyer entrance, we had a blind window before because we had what was it, a shower there, I believe, or something, if I remember right. And now it's actually part of the master bedroom suite. And so the sleeping area, so we actually put a window there instead. In the center court of the original house, we had 3 individual dormers because there were 2 bedrooms there and a bathroom. In the revised proposed altered master bedroom suite, that dormer now contains mostly on the left side the master bathroom, and on the right still contains the bedroom number 3, I think it was, bedroom in the same location. So when the master bathroom moved over here, changing the window locations worked better with the proposed master bathroom. And in doing that, it seemed to make sense to do a singular long shed dormer that would tie those 3 elements together, those 3 window elements together, versus the original elevation, which had the 3 similar single dormers. Okay, and then on the right here, you can see where on the garage, the original proposal had no windows in the garage at all. And on this proposal, we'd like to add, small transom windows above the grade. We have a high grade here in the garage. And then so the last elevation on the left, the upper one is the original again. The only thing we've done here is inserted the small single shed dormer between the existing other dormers. And again, that dormer is just to bring daylight and view into the laundry room on the upper level. That's the only change you can see there. The site remains the same. Nothing changes with the site. And these, again, the renderings will give you an idea of the changes. So there's the original with the shed dormer on the right. And the proposed, again, the only changes, it has a gable dormer on the upper right roof. The right side elevation facing the cul-de-sac, this is the original elevation. The original one had the shed dormers. The proposed one has the gable dormers with, again, some rooms were relocated a little bit inside, so the dormers have shifted location a little bit. On the left elevation, which you can see as you drive down the street, the original, it has 2 dormers. One's a stairwell on the right. One on the left is a bedroom. And we simply added another small shed dormer in keeping with the others for a laundry room on this elevation. So. We didn't, what's after this?
This is the rear.
We talked about the rear there. Oh, well, we went through the changes in the rear elevation already. This is just another view of that. I guess it shows the grade changes, I guess is what we're showing there. Okay, and the materials stay the same, nothing else has changed. So again, it's just simply that some of the interior, we propose to change some of the interior layout, and in some of those cases it affects the exterior, we think in a moderate way, largely with the biggest changes there have to do with the dormer locations in some cases and the type of dormers. And that's the presentation.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Is there any member of the public who would like to address the ARB on this particular application? You can indicate so by raising your hand or using the chat function.
This is Laura. I don't see anyone, but I will let you know if that changes.
Okay, well then I will go around and poll the members of the ARB. Ms. Aubrey.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for I thank the presenter for his remarks, and I have no comments or questions. Thank you.
Mr. Daniel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I remember this review from back in the day. I think, as the applicant pointed out, these are relatively minor changes in comparison to the overall structure itself. And I don't have any further comments.
Okay. Ms. Swan?
No comment. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Kalinsky?
All right, Mr. Burns, thank you. I see no appreciable difference in what we've already kind of worked back and forth and got approved. I think is a very attractive house, and I think it fits well in the neighborhood and meets the criteria. So very happy with it.
Okay. All right.
I'm concerned about the fact that it's no longer symmetrical and that the gabled, that the house is no longer symmetrical. And I think that the mass of the new gables will read like a big black block instead of as two items. And it doesn't appeal to me, but clearly I'm in the minority.
Okay, Ms. Murray, thank you. Ms. Orr?
The new shed roof, the window organization, those moved. They were centered over the windows below, and I can see an odd shift there. Maybe there's nothing you can do but that little odd shift is a little disconcerting. But other than that, I have no comment.
That is on the rear elevation, is that correct?
Yes, the one we just saw before we went to materials.
Yes, I see what you mean. They had 3 pairs of windows in the original, and now it has a 2, 3, 2 with the center 3 being slightly off center.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I see that.
And that just had to do with the interior layout. That was honestly the best we could do to accommodate that interior change.
Is there a reason that you need the left hand of the 3 windows in the center? Otherwise, it would be very close to what the original configuration was.
Right.
I didn't go back to the floor plan to see, but
because the triple in the middle, which is slightly off center, is centered in the master bathroom main space. And this is just to remind everybody, this is the rear of the house, which really cannot be seen by anybody other than their neighbor across.
I see what you're saying. Okay, yeah. Okay. All right, thank you for that explanation.
Yes.
Ms. Orr, any further questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Zellman?
No questions, thank you.
Okay, I do have not a question, but an observation. I noticed you didn't mention this, but the position of the main chimney that's visible in the front of the house has moved.
Yes.
I had always thought it was slightly underscaled for the size of this house. And in its new location, I think it's a little more prominent, and I think actually it looks better. That's an aesthetic judgment, but there's the original, right? And if you go to the next slide, there's the proposed. Also in the roof plans, the two roof plans, it appears as though it got slightly wider, but in the front elevation rendering, it did not change in width. Is there, which is correct?
I'm not sure I understood your question. It did not, the house did not change in size.
Go to the roof plan, original, okay? Then to revision, it appears as though it moved, but then it also got wider in the proposed.
It shouldn't have. It should be the same size.
It looked like that to me.
Yeah, it shouldn't have. The only, yeah, it does look like it. It shouldn't, if I recall right. It should be the same size.
Okay.
But the only reason it
But
moved.
whatever, I think the position gives it more prominence on the roof slope, and I think that actually is an aesthetic improvement.
Okay.
Okay, those are the, excuse me, those are the questions that I have. We've gone through the entire board. Is there a member of the board who would like to make a motion on this particular application?
I'd be happy to make a motion.
Mr. Kalinsky.
Okay, in case ARB 19 LFK-03 Amendment 1004 Doug Hill Lane, I'd like to make this motion. Mr. Chairman, I move that ARB approve ARB 19-LFK-03 amendment located at 1004 Doug Hill Lane, McLean, tax map 022-3 double parent 085 in the Langley Fork Historic Overlay District for the proposal for architectural modifications to an existing single-family dwelling submitted and presented at the July 9, 2020 ARB meeting. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet requirements of zoning ordinance 7-200 historic overlay districts.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Second by Mr. Zellman. May I propose a friendly amendment to the motion in that this is not an existing house, this is a proposed house? Could we make that change? I don't believe it's constructed, is that correct?
No, it was, sorry, when I say existing, I mean it's the prior approved plan versus the proposed plan.
Right. So Laura, can we change that from existing to previously approved or previously proposed? Actually, previously approved, since we did approve it.
That's right.
Sure, that's fine.
Okay. And is that friendly motion acceptable to the maker of the motion?
Yes, it is.
And is it acceptable to the seconder?
It is.
Okay, thank you. Okay, further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I will call the question. All in favor of approving the motion, say aye.
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 And all opposed, say nay. Hearing no nays, the motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
That is the last of the action items on the agenda tonight. So now we will move into items in a workshop session. These are presented for information purposes. There's no public comment for these things. These are for applicants to propose projects and for the ARB to give them advice and guidance prior to actually submitting them for a formal action item. The items numbers 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 are all projects that are going to propose to use the Virginia state tax credits or the federal preservation tax incentives And for that purpose, I need to recuse myself from this. Mr. Daniel has graciously agreed to take the chair for these workshop sessions. I will mute myself and turn off my camera. But I will be able to come back to the meeting when this workshop session is ended.
All right.
Mr. Daniel.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I take the virtual gavel from you. Thank you. All right. Laura, I suspect that this is all one large presentation. Mr. Perry, I'm going to guess. At least for the first, all items 1 through 8, or items to 8, number 8. So
yes, that's correct.
Read it out for our notations that these are ARB 20-LOR 04, 05, 06, and 07 is my understanding are the ones that we are going to be talking to with Mr. Perry, if I'm correct. And these are for site plan improvements to parking, architecture for the new grocery store, anchor site, retail building on the western side, and a amendment to the proposed amended comprehensive sign plan for the Liberty development. All right, Perry, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Great, thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. I'll turn it over to you.
We're here this evening to follow up on the last month's work sessions on the commercial portion of the Laurel Hill Adaptive Reuse Project. The first part of our presentation this evening, we will present changes that we have made in response to your comments. And then the last part of our presentation this evening, we'll introduce a new item, which is some additional signs that we would like to add to our existing comprehensive sign plan. So if it's okay with the chair, I would suggest that we go all the way through the presentation and then after that, do comments and questions.
I think that worked fairly well last time, so why don't we just go with that approach this time?
Great, thank you. Next slide, please. And next slide. So this is the illustrative site plan, which you've seen many times before. Just highlighted in red, the items that we're covering tonight. The new items are the little red circles, rectangles at the southern end of the southern cell block buildings where the proposed signage is located. Next slide. Next slide. So this slide shows the parking lot to be built outside the prison walls adjacent to Silverbrook Road. The suggestion from the ARB last month was that we look at options to provide additional screening for this parking lot without obstructing use of the historic structures on Silverbrook Road. So in response to that, we simply added a hedge along the northern and western edge of that parking lot. And we selected material that we believe will get to be about 4 or 5 feet high over time. The idea being that that hedge would then screen the lower portion of vehicles in that lot and still allow you to look right over the top of it to see the historic structures beyond. Next slide. Aaron, you there? Yes, so this is the landscape schedule. You can see the material that we selected for the hedge at the bottom there. The other material is the same as you saw last month. Next slide. And then we give you some visual images of those different varieties to go look at the variety of the hedge since it's a fairly long hedge. That is the only change we made to the site plan elements. Because that's the only one we thought you guys asked us to look at. Next. So for the grocery and the retail store, I'm going to turn it over to Frank Watkins, one of our architects, to present the revised architecture. You compare that to the architecture for the building to the west. We do have legal representatives on the call as well to answer any questions you may have about this. So with that, I'll turn it over to Frank Watkins.
Good evening. This is Frank Watkins. You're looking at the revised design for the Lydell food store. In the original, the previous presentation, the architecture of the retail building was better received in the Lydell. The comments and suggestions regarding the food store were that the billboard nature of the original design should be toned down, reduce the variety of materials, incorporate the rhythm and connections to the historic structure. And there was a preference for the steel and glass pavilion character of other Lydell stores. In this revised design, you can see we've considerably reduced the amount of the wood, increased the amount of glass, reducing the overall mass of the building. We've introduced vertical accents in the masonry walls and the storefront, which established the rhythm recognized in the retail buildings. Incorporated the same metal canopy treatment as a retail building, which is modeled after that used at the historic buildings. Next slide. The increased glass achieves greater transparency, softening the building, reducing the impact of its mass, and establishing it as more of a glass and steel building rather than a predominantly masonry character of the original scheme. Next slide. These are next two images are of the retail building. We haven't made any changes to the retail building. These are shown to show the consistency with the Lydell building. Next slide. Next slide. This is showing the elevation, the new current elevation for the Lydell store and the retail store. You can see it demonstrates they're similar in character, and they're predominantly steel and glass. We've reduced the amount of wood, and there's greater transparency in the rhythm of the bays. Next slide. Here you see the current Lydell elevation compared to that of the previously reviewed. Next slide. The south elevation has also been revised, reducing the amount of wood and changing the gray brick to white brick where the sign is. Next slide. We prepared again this revised site sections to be consistent with the currently preliminary layout of the mechanical equipment. So we have 3 sections taken through the sites. Next slide. Just as the last time, some portion of the rooftop equipment can be seen from off-site. Be reminded that the trees are not shown and that this view is from over 400 feet away from the building. Next slide. Sightlines from within the walls are similar to the past presentation. The historic towers can still be seen. Small portions of equipment can be seen on the Lydell. We feel it's better than raising the parapet walls and increasing the mass just to completely screen the equipment. Next slide. This is a view from outside of the walls on White Spruce Way and demonstrates how the increased height and amount of glass visually reduces the mass of the Lydell building. It shows how the rhythm of the storefronts and the vertical accents communicate with the historic structure. Next slide. This view shows the retail buildings as you approach the entrance to the projects. Next. It's a similar view from further away. Again, see, this view is intended to demonstrate how the sloped mass of the food store helps to reduce the impact on the historic structures, allowing the towers to dominate the view. There's been no change of this view from the last presentation. Next. Again, from further away on Silverbrook Road, demonstrating that the historic structure, the tower and the wall dominates the views. Next slide. Finally, this view is looking up the rear access point to the back corner of the food store. This is the only angle of the food store that can be seen from this side. The trees between the walls and the road that you can see on the right actually screen everything from Silverbrook.
So I'll take back over at this point. You need to make an amendment to our comprehensive sign plan. You recall that we did a comprehensive sign plan a couple of years ago that covers all of the signage within the Lower Hill Adaptive Use project. Next slide, please. So we are seeking to add some additional signage to the south of the sub-lot buildings facing the southern parking fields. And the purpose is to provide direction to patrons to get to the southern sub-lot buildings and the middle two sub-lot buildings. You recall that the entrances to those commercial spaces are on the tenants. So to get to the tenants in those buildings, you would typically have to walk either up the arcade, go left or right into a building, or walk on the sidewalk outside to get to the door on the end of the building. This slide shows the other signage that's already been approved for the commercial portion project. I'm not seeking any other changes other than to add these 4 additional signs. There are freestanding signs. They will match the character of the signs that are approved in this area to the north. Signs that are outside the wall, facing Silverbrook Road and White Spruce Way. We do have approval from signage from the taxpayer agencies. That was just a quirk in the approval process when we were running the site plan through those agencies after it was approved by the ARB in the county. It was a rather lengthy process, and we were able to insert these signs for approval kind of towards the end of that process. So that's why there's been approved by those agencies already. Next slide, please. So this shows the signs that we're proposing. You can see that there's 2 for each building, 1 adjacent to the arcade on the inside. This drawing doesn't show the quad. There's a lot more space between those 2 buildings around. And then the signs on the outside. And you can see we have 3 different options for based on the tenants that we're trying to accommodate from 1 to 3, basically on each sign. And, it also shows you the general location where these signs will be located, and I think gives you a good idea of the scale of the signs relative to the scale of the mass. Next slide. The next 2 slides are just a lot more detail for the commercial signage associated with the project. These are sheets just right out of the approved comprehensive sign plan, just for context. I think I sent this to you last week. Please. And again, that's just a lot more detail for the signage that's already approved for the site. Next slide, please. This is the signage that's approved for the northern entrance, if you will. The signs in front of the historic wall. You can see we've basically just mimicked the design of these metal frame posts with the cross members and then signage attached to that. So it's the same form that we're proposing on the south side, but they're smaller scale. And these signs, like if I look at the drugstore sign on the far right, that signs could be up to 8.5 feet wide and 7'8" high. If you look at the signs we're proposing for the interior on the south side, they're up to a maximum of 6 inches wide and 6 feet high. So this sign on the outside is about 65 square feet. The biggest one on the inside would be 39 square feet. So it's about 40% smaller than the ones on the inside. Next slide, please. There's the 3 different options. In front of each building, again, gives you the general location of the proposing, the size of the signs relative to the So, I believe that concludes our presentation. Is there any questions?
Hey, Jim, there's a lot of static or echo background coming in. I'm not sure if it's from you or someone else in the team, but the last part of what you were saying there, I think, got really muffled.
Can you go back for Eric? On this slide, Chris?
Yeah, and now that sounds fantastically better. Whatever just happened is great.
This just shows the different options for 1, 2, or 3 tenant signs. It shows you the general location and size of the signs relative to the buildings themselves.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you.
If that's the end of the presentation, I think I'll take a cue from, we don't do citizen comments during workshop items. So I'll take a cue from John and I'll just go down the list. Ms. Aubrey.
Thank you. I do want to thank the presenters for all the work that has clearly gone into the redesign here. It's a much improved appearance of the proposed architecture for the grocery and the retail. And I appreciate the fact that these 2 sides of the development mirror each other in their design, in their materials, and in the colors that are being presented. So thank you very much for all that effort. I think it is a much improved product.
All right, thank you, Miss Aubrey. Miss Wan? Samantha?
Yes, thank you for the presentation and effort. I have no comments too.
All right. Moving on to Mr. Kolinsky.
All right. Thank you. One question for the applicant, I guess, Mr. Perry, this would be for you. Has there been a change in the site grading on the exterior or the parking lot that's exterior to the prison walls since the last meeting?
No, there has not.
Okay. I had thought that and I bring that up because I had the impression that the parking lot was in something of a shallower area, more of a you know, lowered grade than the ground around it.
I think it's what we said last month. It was that we are reducing, or we're exporting material out of that area to lower the finished grade in that area will be lower than the existing grade today.
Okay, but the parking lot itself is not lower than the surrounding grade. It would match then?
It's not lower than the surrounding grade. So, Aaron, can you go back to that slide, please? It's one of the early slides.
And while I'm doing that, I would clarify the parking lot has been lowered significantly relative to White Spruce Way and the intersection of Silverbrook and White Spruce. It does sit a little bit higher than Silverbrook directly to the east because of how quickly Silverbrook Road drops off as it runs from northwest to southeast.
Okay.
So essentially, the grade in White Spruce Way is existing, and the grade at Silverbrook is existing, and so we're basically just falling as you move left to right across that. The topography is falling as you move left to right, and it is falling faster in the proposed than it does where it's the middle is lower than it is today. I'm saying that correctly.
Okay, I think I understand that, and I see that the screening which is there to you know, block the view of the cars as you approach, and I think that's a good solution. One minor concern about that is at some point that's going to potentially grow to the point that you're kind of obscuring the vision of the walls and the towers as you drive in on White Spruce Way. But ultimately they'll reveal themselves once you get past it. So I'm fine with it. Just kind of a minor little debate in my mind on you know, the best course of action there. But no issue with it. I just wanted that clarification. With regards to the changes to the Lydell grocery store, to say I think I may have been the one who made the comment about the billboard architecture last time. I just I want to kind of go on record. I did like the design of the building, the previous design of the building quite a bit. I just didn't think it was quite appropriate for these conditions. And I'm say very satisfied to see the changes to the design and the incorporation of the rhythm of the windows and the steel and the glass here on this new design. I think it is much more appropriate to the location and it has a dialogue with the retail building now, which works very well. So thank you for considering all that was mentioned before. I think you guys did an excellent job.
Great, thank you.
And that's all, Mr. Daniels.
All right, Ms. Murray.
Okay, I'm unmuted. I still have concerns as to how the building materials relate to the penitentiary. I think the glass and the portico is a vast improvement. I noticed that the back of the grocery store is going to be, quote, drive-it. Does that mean it's going to be faux stucco?
I have to defer to the legal.
Michael, you want to handle that? Yeah, certainly. Hello and good evening, everybody. Thank you for your time and attending this workshop and for your feedback on the last workshop. To answer your question, ma'am, the Yes, the public and front facing, front and side elevations are going to be brick into wood panels, steel and glass we see. The sides that are facing the wall are going to go and be ephes or stucco, if you will. We figure that since the historical wall is screening those from public view, and really nobody's going to be back there seeing them or the like, that we wanted to go and put our best foot forward and then have the more durable, more historic materials facing the public. So to answer your question directly, yes, this is the rear elevation that faces the wall is planned to be ephes or stucco, if you will.
Okay, it's my perception, and it may just be perception, that those materials get dirty and yucky looking quickly, more quickly than the brick. Is that correct?
The typically, yes, both of them will need cleaning over time. We wouldn't be able to go and see that rear elevation from the public view because the wall is going to go and block that. So the only way that you would see that is being in behind the building, in between the building and the existing site wall, that you would actually go and see that material back there.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
That's it, all my comments.
Thank you, Ms. Murray. Ms. Orr?
I too appreciate the improved dialogue and have no further comments.
All right, Mr. Zellman.
I would only echo that I like this design better. I appreciate the changes and effort put into it. Thank you.
All right, that just leaves me. I have to agree with Mr. Kalinsky. I'm happy that you took another look at that parking again. I know we've talked about it quite a lot every time it's come back up, so I'm appreciative of that consideration there. With the Lindy facade changes and everything, I agree. I do like the more open changes to the windows and the metal addition, and I do like the changes to the materials there. While I want a clear distinction between this structure and the historic structures, I do kind of feel Ms. Murray's concerns that there still could be more done, but I was spending this time letting my other colleagues talk to come up with my own thoughts of where that might be. I don't think you have this available to you, but do you have a rendering of the front elevation of the historic structure that you could pull up? I didn't have that available with me to look at them side by side.
I don't believe that we do, unfortunately. Sorry. Let me scroll through to see if I can find anywhere it might be in the background.
I do think that you now have the two buildings, the two new structures talking to each other a lot better now. There's not previously there was a lot of, it just clearly felt that they were two separate structures. And while they are, it just didn't feel like there was communication back and forth. I'm seeing at least a corner of it. And I think it's the darker tones of the main building, but I don't want to emphasize that you need to try to capture that in a way. Like I was thinking about the south elevation and how you eliminated that dark section in the center. I actually kind of like that one. It brought a little bit more language to the elevation, that there's some variation going on there. Now it just feels more like a blank wall. It makes me think of the ephes side at the back. And I agree, thanks to the elevations you've shown. I know we're not going to see that side. I'm not going to fight for materials on that side. I do think the other two sides having the as you just pointed out, the more durable materials, which I don't know why we wouldn't put durable materials around all sides, brick on every side. But, that rear side of a grocery store obviously is not the place I'm focusing on. So obviously, I don't have enough to add here to say that I have a particular item. I think the main facade section with the windows is where you make some vast improvements, and that really is now going to talk. All three buildings will talk to each other, as before it just kind of felt like they were dropped in a little bit. That being said, I will fall back, Mr. Kalinsky. The designs of those grocery stores are not bad to begin with. It's not that they're bad architecture. We're in a very special place here. The other question I had, shifting off these designs, was to the sign thing, and I just don't feel like I'm looking at that. I was not quite sure, Jim, what I was actually was changing. It felt like we were just maintaining more consistency in signage. So I really got lost in looking at that signage package, and maybe I just was really missing the, you know.
So next slide, Aaron. So I apologize if I too much information was confusing. These 4 signs that you see proposed here, these are not part of the comprehensive sign plan now. So we're seeking to add these to the sign plan. We kind of view it as an oversight. They should have been in there originally. We just didn't think about it. It didn't really become an issue for us until we actually started having serious conversations with potential tenants for those structures. And the question came up, well, how do people know where I'm at? How do they find me? And if the door is not facing the parking, it's perpendicular to the parking, and somebody needs to go down that arcade or down one of the outside sidewalks, how do they know where to go?
Okay. All right. Yeah, that was what I was missing. I think I was missing that. Maybe I lost that in translation there. Okay. Well, I mean, we talked the sign plan to death, and honestly, I don't have a problem there from my perspective. So those are my 10 cents. Obviously, I don't have any other board member any observation on the signage stuff. Now that I brought that clarification, but otherwise, I guess unless there's another individual member that's got a comment, I turn it to you, Jim, and your folks. If you've got any other questions.
Good.
Chris, this is Laura. I will say we have 2 users, and I don't know who they're with in the attendee list. So I'm going to unmute them real quick and ask them if they wanted to speak on this application. I'm sorry, I just noticed them now. Is that appropriate?
Sure.
Have a user 70 calling user 6. I don't know. Let's see the number 727-656 something. You're unmuted. Which application are you with? No. Okay. Well, give them the opportunity to speak.
Okay.
We'll see if somebody either raise their hand or something like that later.
All right. Well, again, Jim, unless you or your team have any other questions, I again thank you as always for your efforts to put these together for us.
We're good. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. All right, Laura, if you will find a way to get our illustrious leader back.
Actually, Chris, the next item he can't.
No, we can't do either. You're right. You're right. I'm sorry. My apologies.
Okay. Okay. But let me promote the people that will be talking about that.
Okay.
Hold on 1 second.
Right. Well, for the record, we will be now moving on to item 9, ARB 20 LOR 07, proposed modifications to buildings W-13 and W-15 located at 9514, 9517 Workhouse Way in Lorton. These are part of the Workhouse section of the Laurel Hill adapted for use area. Miss Jenny Alvarez of Samaha Associates is representing the application. Hopefully Laura has unmuted you and promoted you to present your abilities.
Ms. Alvarez, you might be muted, but you now have the presentation presenter mode on. Hello? Oh, there we go.
Ms. Alvarez, though, we can still not hear you. You seem to still be muted. Okay, and now at this point, I see you're unmuted, but it doesn't seem like we can still hear you at this point. Well, at least we know you can alter the your presentation. We can...
And Miss Alvarez, are you the 727-656 number? Hello? No.
Yes, I am.
Oh, okay.
There we go. All right.
All right,
Thank
I've
you.
unmuted you.
Ms.
So
Alvarez,
now
we
you can
can hear you now. So
Okay, great. You
please
can
move
hear me
ahead with
then?
your presentation.
Thank you so much, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Jenny Alvarez, as you may have heard, with Samaha Associates, and we're very excited to present the Workhouse project concept to the board tonight. This is on behalf of the county's building design and construction divisions for the public-private partnership branch. And with us, I believe we have the project managers Eileen Geisiger and John Beecham. And from Samaha, Tom Lee, our principal, and Mike Norton from Lorton Land Design as our landscape architect. Now, to give you a general overview, let's see, we'll give you a historical background. The Workhouse campus is located in the DC Workhouse and Reformatory District, just off of Ox Road in Lorton, Virginia, as you'll see here in the historical overlay district. And the Workhouse campus is here toward the south end, just east of Ox Road and north of the Occoquan River. The Workhouse campus, of course, has several buildings, and the buildings in question here, 13 and 15, sit on the west end of the site, just across Workhouse Way, and they basically act as a gateway into the courtyard space, central courtyard space of the campus, with Ox Road on the west side. And we have a few interesting aerial photographs of the campus as it progressed through the last few decades, and really not much has changed over time. The site features have, for the most part, been preserved. As you can see, buildings 13 and 15 sit here on the north and south, just on the west end of the central courtyard space, and Ox Road on the left side. And the Workhouse Way was not added at this point. As you can see, we still had some arcades connecting to the buildings. Here's another view which shows some of the tree buffers that were planted along Ox Road and in the courtyard space between the two buildings. Another site feature that you might find throughout the district, the historic district, were these entry gateways and brick signage piers that you'll see referenced in our concept later on. Now, to give you a better sense of our site, here's our enlarged site plan showing the building 13 and 15 sitting across from each other, basically in a mirror layout of each other across the open green space, which we hope to improve as a small plaza to welcome visitors that may be passing along Ox Road here on the west side at the bottom of the page. And on the the east side, you'll see the courtyard and the rest of the campus just across from the Workhouse Way. And here you get a sense of the architectural character overall for the campus. A lot of arcade style covered walkways with gable ends and slate roofs. On the corner up here, you see buildings 13 and 15 sitting across from each other, overlooking the green. And both buildings 13 and 15 have a colonial revival style with repeating windows and dormers, both along the north and south sides. And these connect to arcade entries. I think the only differences between the two buildings is the exterior metal staircase on the east side of building 15, as you can see, right next to Workhouse Way. Now, both buildings are currently vacant, which is why you'll see that the windows are boarded for protection. Here's another view of the exterior staircase on building 15 and the entryway under the arcades. Now, for the floor plans, we're looking to, of course, preserve the building as much as possible with the exterior envelope, with the north and south windows being preserved, repaired, and maintained. We're simply changing some non-traditional doorways to be more historically correct, and taking a few of the partitions out to make this, to prepare the building for future tenant use. If you have to make this as a warm-lit shell. We will be doing the structural repairs to bring the buildings to be code compliant, and there is a central staircase that may be enlarged. On the exterior, now that we open up the plan a little bit, we'll give the future tenants the option to add the exterior stair on building 13 to match the current one at building 15. So the existing plans for building 15 now, again, mirror image of building 13 plan with just a few partitions on the interior with the central staircase. And here's the exterior staircase on the east side. On the second floor, we have, again, north and south dormer windows with a few partitions leading to the central staircase. We'll be doing the structural repairs. As you can see, these are those red walls for shear reinforcement. And on the second floor, we'll be removing some temporary shoring columns that are currently supporting the roof due to some damages. Open up our plan to allow for future tenant use. You'll see in the exterior, we're doing our best to maintain the architectural character. We're not touching anything unless it's absolutely necessary. In this case, it would really be just the main entry. Currently, that's a modern door, and we'll actually try to provide it with a more historically correct entry. All the repairs will be done in kind with the same materials. If anything is to be replaced, it will be in kind, and windows will be patched, repainted, everything to match, of course, architectural detail. Oh, sorry about that. And I'm sorry, I'm having a little bit of a technical difficulty here. Oh, okay, I got it. Again, these are the elevations for building 15. Everything basically looks the same, except for the exterior staircase, which will remain. And I believe Mike Norton's also on the line. I would like to hand it off to him to explain the concept for the plaza.
I am on the line. I'm on the line. I don't think I have control, Jenny. So I think you might have to forward for us. What's that?
I don't know unless he has the screen open or the same presentation. I mean, we can do that too. If it's up to your if you want to just toggle through. And
I could just flip for you. Yeah,
if you could just, yep, that'd be great. That'd be great. Thank you. What we're looking at is the main quad on the right or the east side is the improvements that have been done over time. Workhouse Way is partially almost centered on the drawing that you're looking at, north, south. looking at the area between Ox Road and the multi-use path, looking at a space that would actually invite users of the multi-use path into the site and begin to experience the space with two entry points, if you will, to the north and south as indicated, concrete pathways at Workhouse 15 and Workhouse 13. Looking at screening trees, reestablishing the canopy along the multi-use path. Oh, just lost it a little bit. We'll see if this. Here we go. Oh, okay. And then we rotated 90 degrees on this plan. What we have is, if you look, Ox Road is plan up, which is to the west, multi-use path, and then furthest plan at the bottom is Workhouse Way. There's approximately 6 feet of grade change between the multi-use path and Workhouse Way. Looking at changing that grade on the north side through a series of small steps that would be about 2 feet on each landing that you see, with a pier indicating the change in grade on each side. Gathering spaces between the multi-use path and Workhouse Way. There is a large stormwater inlet that is right in the middle of the property in the green space between Workhouse 13 to the north and Workhouse 15 to the south. What we are looking at is to potentially keep the inlet where it is and bridge over that with what's basically as a concrete planking decking system that would look like it's on grade, but it would allow that structure to stay where it is, minimize having to relocate structures that are out there right now. Right, here we go. Native plantings, all plantings within the space between the two entry points to the north and the south would be low perennials, and then again shade canopy trees that would be to the north and to the south, but allowing that view from the multi-use path to remain open into that courtyard gathering space that is on the other side of Workhouse Way to the east. If we can move forward. This will be a small section from Ox Road down into the Workhouse complex that shows the grade change of the 6 feet and how that would occur with the pillars that we have indicating at the grade change, and that goes back to what Jenny was showing with the historic pillars that were discovered as part of this project. Go to the next drawing, Jenny. Looking at potential, we have different ideas that we're looking at for these pillars at the gateway or entry area. Ideas of columns for each side, a column A, a column B. That would be different ways of looking at it. It has an industrial feature to it, but also goes back to the historic nature of this of the columns that were on the site. Again, looking at different ideas because this is a potential arts area. Looking at different monumental features, we did start settling on the idea of the brick, but we looked at different ideas for art features and gateway entrances and different boardwalk features, again, to bridge the gap of the stormwater facility, not as a boardwalk, but as just a way to soften the slope that's out there and use it as a gathering space. I'm gonna go to the next slide, Jenny.
Sorry about that.
Oh, yep.
There we go.
Just some of the low native plantings out there, ornamental grasses, some of the perennials, looking at all natives, the taller canopy trees, the bottom right, like the thornless honey locust, providing filtered shade to the site, and then to the left of that, the eastern redbud native ornamental flowering tree. Then again, native grasses and perennials to accent the area, the entry. Good. And that's where we are on the site.
All right. Thank you for the presentation. I'll turn it over to my board members. Ms. Albrey.
I have no comment. It all looks like a great plan, and I look forward to seeing it developed. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Ms. Wan? Samantha?
Sorry for the waiting.
Oh, it's okay.
I don't quite know how to comment on it. It probably this information coming as new information for the first time, so I still try to get my head wrapped around it and see how I feel about it. The one thing I can say is that every time we drive by, it's a great vision to see the lawn that is so big and it's nothing there. So any event could happen there because there's nothing there. Now we elected to put something in front of that green lawn. I do not quite know how I feel about the whole thing. So I'm not like feeling one way or the other. I still try to decide how I feel about it.
Well, we are taking the that in mind, the open view and maintaining that you should into the central plaza. We certainly want to maintain that, and this is why we're hoping to kind of keep that center space open. Just allowing the trees to flank on either side, and really this is a continuation of the current trees along Ox Road, but we'll do our best to keep that center space open because we of course want to allow for visitors to view deep into the campus.
All right. On to Mr. Kolinsky.
All right, thank you, Mr. Daniel. It's great to see that the buildings are going to be get the love and attention they need. So very happy with that. The plaza, I think, is very subtle, which I think is appropriate here. I think it's very well executed. I do agree with Ms. Swang that there will be some obscuring of the main quad, particularly as you're driving by on Ox Road. But I would suggest maybe that some paring back of some of the trees might be a solution, but I realize that they're flanking the ones that would best be removed are the ones that are flanking the pedestrian paths, and they're the ones that are, I would say, needed to both humanize it and also protect it from the shade. So I think what you have works. I think I would say the loss of the drive-by view is less of an issue. So overall, very pleasing, very well done. I just respect Ms. Wong's comment on that. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Murray.
Could you tell us what needs to be repaired on 13 and 15? I went to a meeting and I think it was 15. And then the next thing I knew, we weren't allowed to use the building again. So what needs to be done to those buildings?
For repairs?
Yes.
The building mainly needs window repair. The envelope needs to just be weather tight with some new sills, perhaps flashings need to be replaced. And the roof has a few loose shingles, perhaps, so the slate pieces need to be secured. Just minor trim repairs and paint. And like I said earlier, we would like to replace the entryways that are not historically correct to make them match the historical elevations.
Okay, thank you.
Interior was we also have the structural repairs on the interior. There were some damaged beam ends and some trusses that needed some additional support.
Okay, so it's the beam ends and trusses that made the buildings become out of bounds.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I believe that there was a entrance structure in brick that stretched across the front, I thought between 13 and 15. I swear there are pictures of it. Have you found those pictures?
We have the historical photos here. Let's see, let me go back to that. I believe that the connections were to the arcades on the main plaza, but I believe those must have been removed, or rather cut short, when Workhouse Way was brought across the site there.
Okay, I wish you'd look a little further. I think I like what you're going to plan to do for the plaza, but it would be nice to know what had been there before. I thought it was in that spot between 13 and 15 as opposed to on the other side of Workhouse Way. There was something there.
Between 13 and 15?
I thought there was. You mentioned pillars that you found? Somebody mentioned pillars that they found?
Oh, there were some here. There's really just a storm drain at the moment. Historically, there was a small sign for the north west end, and that sign was demolished at some point. So we looked around in the historic district, and we found some similar examples, and this is what that was referring to.
Where did you? Somebody said that. Did Mr. Norton say he saw pillars? There were traces of pillars in there.
For the concept,
I was referring back to these photos, and that's all that I had.
I swear I've seen something else, but I don't know if I have possession of it. And most of, I think you should look a little further.
Oh, Elise, I don't mean to interject on you, but if you look at the historic aerials from the county's ArcGIS system, I mean, I was pulling that up while we're talking about this. I mean, there's always seems to have been a large opening in the space. There was at one point a brick wall you're talking about, but I think that was in between where Workhouse Way was that you're thinking about. I wish I could share it very easily.
I know what the aerials show, but I really think that sometime before 1937, since the thing was started in 1915, there was something else there.
Ah, okay. I misunderstood you.
Here we have an image of 1937, and there's, I think there's mostly landscape between the two buildings and what was maybe like a dirt road. And on other photos, we start to see some features. There's some shadows. I believe one of these is a small sign that was removed for the records, but the historical records on the county's side. It seems that it was demolished in around 2005, if I'm not mistaken. It was a small site sign.
That's not what I thought I'd seen. I wish Irma Clifton were still alive. The photograph I have seen was from ground level. It was not an aerial, and I guess it was gone by 37. So I guess it's fine to not look back any further than that. cause me concern. But otherwise, I like what you're planning. I generally like what you're planning to do with the plaza. And it would be very great to have 13 and 15 back in use again. Thank you.
That would be wonderful. Yes, thank you.
All right, Ms. Orr.
Thank you very much for your presentation, and I look forward to seeing this space developed.
Thank you.
Mr. Zellman.
Chris, this is Laura. Mr. Zellman might have left. He let me know he had to leave at 8:15 tonight.
Okay. All right, well, then I'll provide my feedback. Obviously, overall, I'm pleased at the fact that these buildings are getting repairs in TLC that they much need. I think I share much of the concerns that some of my fellow board members share about the amount of tree cover being proposed between the two structures. In looking at the proposed plan for that landscaping, I mean, at this current point, there's an existing sidewalk that passes underneath the, I don't want to call it a portico, but the existing extended porch on one of the buildings on 15. It moves around to the front of the building, or not to the front, to the rear, actually. And I'm wondering why we're taking advantage of that pathway and building, because it looks like instead on the plan being proposed, you're building a new path. Is that my understanding?
We're actually trying to use and align these paths to connect to our new proposed plaza spaces. Let me just get back to that.
Well,
There may be some
think I
minor
understand
misalignment.
that, but I think the sidewalk that I'm talking to in question that goes underneath and connects to the portion of 15 that juts out aligns roughly with this plaza path, I thought.
Those pathways, the connections are still being made. They're a little more subtle, and they actually come from the parking on either side of the opposite side of Workhouse 13 and 15. They come around and they turn 90 degrees. I wish I had a little pointer on here. I don't think that I do. And they connect and they go through either side of the far end of the plaza and go through the what we're going to call, I guess, the portico for the time being. So we're trying to use that connection that is there while introducing new gateway entrances off of the multi-use path.
The problem I have with that is I think it becomes we're almost creating a funnel on the view to the main quad space.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do like the connection to the multi-use path. I think, obviously, I was going back all the way to 1937 because that's all the aerials go back to. I wish we had what Elise was talking about, and I agree. I wish Irma was still with us because she would know. But I do think it's a little tight, is what I feel like right now. Particularly because we've been very clear with the Workhouse Art Center and with the quad itself about, how open we want to keep that. And I mean, that view from Ox is pretty clear. I mean, you can see right in, and I'm worried at how much this is going to constrain that.
So could it be the potential of the removal of the on the plan that we're looking at right now, maybe the interior of those 2 rows of trees?
And I'm thinking that's part of the changes that might need to happen there.
Sure.
Another question that comes to my mind when we talk about this, I thought there was a plan at one point for there to be a large sculpture base that was proposed here. Has that plan just faded away into non-existence?
Hi, this is Laura. That has been tabled for right now.
Gotcha. Okay, been tabled. And I'm assuming whatever path we're proposing here is going to be accessible to allow ease of access.
Yeah, actually, I should have. I didn't know how much. I thought I had very limited time. The south entry from the multi-use path would be accessible with a ramp landing / area, and then to the north side would be the one that would have the steps. So you can kind of see the steps, the double lines. That would be
Yeah,
the
here's the
landing
ramp.
and access on that side, and then again to the north side would be the stairs. Yes.
Okay. I like the concept of having something there and making that usable space because it makes it more alluring. It creates opportunities, which I think that's the big goal we want to have with the workhouse is the likelihood that there are opportunities there. But I also don't want to break up the kind of dialogue that I see with that open space that traditionally was there. And so I'm looking, I think I'm having a hard time visualizing some of it might be part of the challenge. And I think it's because of the assembly area. I think I'm looking at it from a plane view, looking at it from an elevation view, and I'm having a hard time seeing
Right.
in a way that understands how are we affecting that viewpoint. Because I think that is a selling point to the workhouse as well as a historic value to the workhouse is being able to see down there. Because if something is going on, I want to know. And I think Sam made that point as well when she was bringing it up on her points. Yeah, if we could be talking about some kind of change to the trees in the center area, and I don't know if the county has the ability to render that in a way that can make it a little bit more easier for us to understand it. That's where my general unease comes from overall in this portion. With the buildings themselves, I'm happy to see that and would hope that the quicker we can get that through, the better, so that we can get work on those happening, so folks can begin using them. But that's I think that's all I have.
So it sounds like what I'm hearing from a couple is basically the view from Ox Road driving by, not as much from a biker or hiker on the multi-use path.
I would, from me, it's both, but particularly the drive-by. I think a lot of the concern we've had with this property is making sure that this clear open space captures the eye. And I think you could turn this into a lens if this is done right to make someone go, oh, what's that? And they look, and not only are they seeing the entrance area that you put together, but they're also looking further and seeing the space in there. They look past the plaza, that catches the eye, and they now see the interior space, what's going on in there. Oh, there's the love sign. Because I mean, we just came back, my wife and son, and I immediately pointed out to her, and if my toddler had not been at a breaking point, we would have stopped to take a picture of the love sign because I forgot that was the permanent location for it. So that is I think a capture there, and I want it to keep being that because that space is not only historic, but is a working space for this area.
Right. Understood. I think we can work with the landscape on that. I don't think that's a problem to open that view up.
May I add a little bit?
Absolutely, please.
Yes. I see you have a very long section that going through the plaza, and the land between building 15 and 13 is slightly higher than the main quad. So by introducing more people to the land between building 15 and 13, I like that idea. The people there does make that space start to getting alive. The vision I having is we always see the open space and then we see the main house at the end of the quad. Now we are adding another layer in front of it. How to balance this? I do not have an answer for it right now. I like try to put activity in that space, but I also do not want to see the openness and the main building at the back start to blurry.
Okay, well, I think if I may, I just wanted to point out that at the moment, it's a little difficult to see really that far in, and we have the signage up currently precisely because we're hoping to get the visitors' attention as they drive across Ox Road. And it is a fairly wide space there between the two buildings. I think if it could be a layer type of landscape to just shade a little bit along the sides and maybe give it a little bit more interest, that will still remain fairly open while still creating some interest along that view. That way we can sort of replace that signage with a more natural setting.
I guess to piggyback on top of Samantha's comment again, I think there's a solution that marries these two. Very easy. I also like the fact that you've thought of an innovative way to deal with the stormwater situation, which many other applicants would really just tell us we have to deal with it and we have to live with that unsightliness. So I give you points for the creativity there to find a way to remove something that it can in no way be other than unsightly. Basically, it's a need. It's going to be dealt with. From my perspective, while I'm concerned about the views and I'm concerned about being that, I'm also concerned about the fact that I want to maintain the character of the landscape and layout that exists there. So that's why I'm trying to express a lighter touch in some of that area, or seeing if we can ease back a little bit, still do something, but not try to give a false sense that this has always been a plaza space. If it is going to be a new plaza space, it needs to be distinct in a way that makes folks go, well, this is definitely different. Like the materials you were suggesting, this stage area, I think that stands out from the main plaza, which definitely is much more of a very plain space meant for things to be temporarily erected and then go down. So I'm not against that, but I'm not looking at it just from the view from Ox Road. I'm legitimately looking at it from the view from above at the overall landscape. I'm trying to marry all those aspects in my mind.
Right. And I also thought it may be helpful to point out that the main goal, as some of you might have mentioned, was to restore and to repair and bring the buildings up to code, and we certainly want to get that going. And as far as getting the exterior improvements done, mainly we're concerned with having some of these gathering spaces or crosswalks, and the landscape along Oxford could be on a second phase that could be studied further later on as we develop this.
That's good to know. I think universally the board members were completely positive with the repairs to the structures. That's something that we would want to see happen sooner than later. But I think the idea is there, and I think listening to the thoughts you've gotten from the board members, I don't think you're far off. So, and obviously if there's anything that can be obtained to get some of the stuff Elise talked about, that would be helpful to know, just so we could be honest to what was there even before the aerials that we're looking at. But I hopefully we've given you enough feedback to go back with, and look forward to seeing you again soon.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
No more other questions? All right.
I don't believe so.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Hearing none, I will look to Laura to restore our official chairman back to power.
Now we just got to get him back.
Okay. And while we're waiting for that, hopefully you can get our next workshop applicant who's been waiting very patiently online, Mr. Greg Winderman, I believe. I may have butchered that. I apologize. Oh, there he is. John, I hand the gavel back to you, sir.
I'm back. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you taking over on my behalf. The next workshop item is number 10. It's ARB-05-LFK-02. Amendment proposed for exterior modifications for a single-family residential dwelling located at 1000 Doom Hill Lane, tax map 22-3, Plan 08, lot 0004A. And I'm hearing a lot of static. I don't know if anyone else is. The applicant is proposing modifications to closing, raising the primary roof height, pitching the end-facing gables at each side. It's viewed from the side, front street elevation, and move one-story rear yard addition and a one-story side yard addition. The original proposal was approved by the ARB back in 2005. Mr. Greg Wiederman of Wiederman Architects is representing the application. Mr. Wiederman, are you on the line?
I am. Thank you, and thank you.
Right, and are you going to control the presentation, or are we?
I will. Let me share.
Okay, you're in.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Architectural Review Board. I'm Greg Wiedemann, Principal of Wiedemann Architects. I believe Andrew Dan and Gabby Castillo are also with me this evening, who are my staff architects. The property that we're speaking about is in the more northerly edge of the historic district. Our client owns the highlighted portion, which is in the historic district, as well as the portion just outside of the historic district to the west. As everyone probably knows, it sits at the end of the cul-de-sac. It backs up against federal land in the back here. And the other new home that you saw presented earlier today is here on lot 5. The house, as was mentioned, was built in 1996 and underwent a renovation in 2005, at which time the front appearance of the house was changed. This porch was added, and this continuous element here replaced the original design. This is the house in particular that we're speaking of. There's a neighboring house directly to the right. And one of the things that our client observed was that this house seems to be very low. Unlike the other houses, such as the one to the right, the roof seemed to be minimized. Let me first take you. This is the route from Georgetown Pike. The Scoville property is to the right, and the meeting house is to the left. As you can see, you can only get a very small glimpse of the home as one goes down Doak Hill Lane. This dirt area right here is where the new home is going to be built. You can see under construction now. Sorry. So the road swerves around lot 5 and leads to the cul-de-sac, which screens the house from the neighboring properties. So again, the view from the meeting house and the view from the Scoville property are largely obscured by trees. So from the meeting house, the line of sight to the house is largely blocked. And the same is true of the Scoville property, which is bound by trees along this line. So one could not see the Scoville property or the Langley Hill Friends Meeting House from the property itself. So one of the things that, I'm sorry, just a minute. So it has a symmetrical facade with these two side wings. This is the existing condition. We're proposing two changes to this. We're proposing to change this coining, which is in brick, and introduce a matching Carter Rock stone in the main body of the house to contrast with the two brick wings. That's how the center portion of the house is rendered on the rear facade, which I will show you in a minute. As you go to the side of the house, there's a rather vertical element here with a 3-car garage. This is the back of the house, a very extensive rolling lawn that goes up to the right in this picture. There's several semicircular bays on the house. And a beautiful rolling landscape up to a tennis court, which is off of is on the lot immediately to the west, which is part of the property, but outside the historic district. So this is the home. As it is now, there's a small pool house here and tennis court, and the general contours of the land are going up in this direction. The changes that we're proposing are two in the front that I mentioned earlier. We are also taking an open entry here off of the driveway and enclosing it to provide an enclosed access to an elevator which exists in this location. And we're adding a 1-story glass link to a garden pavilion, which will sit in the rear of the property. We're making a number of interior changes at the moment, but what I'm here to present are the changes to the exterior. This is the lower level of the home, which is on grade on the right-hand side and below grade at the front of the house. You can see that we're enclosing the access to the elevator. We're introducing a bay on the 3 garages, and this is what you're beginning to see is the link to the solarium. The changes on the first floor are modifications to 2 doors on the back of the living room, increasing the glazing in this particular bay that looks out into the garden, repositioning 2 windows to be symmetrical about a reworked breakfast room and family room. And here you're seeing the introduction of another glass bay that echoes the others that are currently existing in the house. At the rear of the property, we are introducing a glass link to the octagonal solarium. It has a glass skylight and glass walls. We're calling it the winter garden. You can walk through from the breakfast room out to the plaza, the patio in the back, or directly into the octagonal solarium. This shows the change to the first floor. I mean, to the front elevation, excuse me, where we've eliminated the brick coining and added the matching Carter Rock stone. And we're proposing to increase the roof by slightly over 2 feet, allowing the two side wings to be more secondary to the massing. This is we felt that this was very vertical on the driveway side, that the curved bay brings the scale down. We've modified this window, getting rid of the circular Palladian window above, adding a window here and enclosing, again, the entrance and access to the elevator that serves the first floor. In the rear, this is the link. We're proposing to change some of the railings, which currently do not meet code. And we're proposing a brick. This is painted brick, matching the house. All modifications to the main roof would be continuing the existing slate. And in the garden pavilion, we're introducing a standing seam copper roof. The link that connects it to the house would also be a flat copper roof, which is here. All the windows are wood windows that match the existing house with painted brick and painted columns and trim with gaslight lanterns. The garden pavilion is designed so that the glass enclosure of the garden pavilion can, the windows can be lowered so that it can be converted to a screen porch. And it has a oculus to bring in light and a coffered plaster ceiling. Okay. I think that outlines what we are proposing. I'm open to any questions.
Well, thank you very much for the presentation. I will go through the roll call of members of the board for their own comments. Ms. Aubrey.
I have no comments at all, no questions. Thank you.
Mr. Daniel.
I was trying to decide where my thoughts and comments. Can we go back to the map in the district? And is there a way for you to zoom in? Thank you. Thank you. Exactly what I'm looking for.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. I don't know why I'm saying that when I could probably pull up the file that I have on my desktop. I probably could be able to do that. So, yeah, I can actually do that. Never mind.
Okay.
So I think in general, I don't really have comments on the solarium. I think my biggest concern was the visual effect of raising the roof. It seemed, based on the information provided, that was not going to be a concern based on what I'm seeing there. So I don't really have a great deal of comments at this time.
This roof is a mansard roof, and the slope of the front of the roof is less steep than the back. So one of the things we're doing is we're making the slope of that center roof match the back at the same time.
But I guess the other question is, what's going on? What's going on right in front of the house? What is that? What is someone else doing? I know that's not your project. I'm just curious. That's another new project, I'm assuming, correct?
I'm sorry, to the left here?
Well, yeah, in your photos, you have someone's pouring concrete for a foundation, it looks like.
Well,
Daniel, that was the previous applicant that we had tonight at 1004.
That's lot 5 here.
Right.
Which is 1004 Doak Hill Lane. That's that large home that you reviewed earlier this evening.
Okay. No, I didn't even put those two together. Okay.
Right.
This was originally completely wooded before that site was cleared. But I do think that house will block any view of our client's house upon approach.
Well, I think you make a valid point right there. But I don't have any further comments. I did not put the location of those two houses exactly next to each other like that. But thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Daniel. Ms. Huang?
I have no comment. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Kalinsky?
Yes, just want to thank Mr. Wiedemann. I think this is appropriate to the district, what you're doing, and some of the improvements you make are really help. What is already a nice house, I think you're making it even better. So congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Kalinsky. Ms. Murray?
I have nothing to add.
Okay. Ms. Orr?
I understand their need to pop that roof up a little. So I think you've done it very subtly and it looks nice.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Zellman?
John, this is Laura. Mr. Zellman left it about 8:15 from the meeting.
Oh, okay. I wasn't around for that. Okay. Then questions for me then. The Fairfax County, I believe, at this location would limit you to the midpoint of the roof being 35 feet above grade. Is that being maintained?
Yes, we would be below that limit by a couple of feet.
Okay. That was the only question I had. Do you have any questions for members of the board based on the comments we've fed back to you?
No, I don't think so. I appreciate being able to present this in this work session.
Okay. Then I presume at some point you will come back to us for an action item.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. Well, we will see you in the future then.
Thank you very much, and thank you to members of the board.
Okay. Well, that concludes the workshop items for tonight's meeting. Now we have a couple of presentations. Laura, are you going to introduce these for us, or?
I can. We just have one presentation tonight. It's an update on the Judicial Center Massey Complex work that's going on in their master plan. And we have Ms. Ellen Van Holly Bronson and Ms. Kim Callahan from Capital Facilities at the county to do this presentation.
Well, thank you.
Are you all seeing my screen?
Hold on, I'm changing it to you right now.
Okay, maybe not.
Okay, you should be able to share your screen now, Ellen.
Okay. Yes. All right, let me see here. We need to go to slideshow. Just play it. Okay. Is that all good?
Yes.
All right. I think it's been about a year, maybe a little more than a year since we last presented to you. So a fair amount has happened, but we're not finished. So I wanted to kind of touch back with you all and tell you where we are and where we're headed to finish up the master plan at the Judicial Complex, also known as the Massey Complex. I don't recall if we had set the master plan priorities when we met with you last, but we do have a land use development team that has representatives of all the various stakeholders that are on the complex. And they came up with 4 master plan priorities. The first one was sustaining a judicial complex that is safe and secure for visitors and employees, to create a welcoming and accessible complex designed to efficiently facilitate access and interaction with countywide judicial and public safety functions that is compatible with the surrounding community and its context. And the third was respecting the integrity of the on-site historic resources and to enhance the public's experience of those assets. And then the fourth was to identify opportunities for public-private partnerships to create complementary secondary uses through strategic planning and site design. As we were working through the master plan, we do have an executive leadership team that's made up of the deputy county executives and the county executive. And they added a 5th priority, which was to use the available development capacity for consolidation of lease space and additional county programs. And you'll see why in a moment. So we'll move on. Project schedule. We started the project in June of 2018. We actually went on hold last June until this March. While we were waiting for the politics to settle down, we were getting a new supervisor in Providence District, and we wanted to make sure that they were all up to speed when they came into office. So the project did go on hold for a little bit, and we were also sorting out who else could come onto the site from lease space nearby. We've had 3 different stakeholder meetings and, 4 stakeholder meetings and 3 public workshop meetings. The last public workshop was on May 28th, and we are now finalizing the master plan. We should have it finalized by the end of this month, and then we are moving into doing the refinements, including cost estimating and phasing of how that master plan could be implemented. And everything should be wrapped up on this in October. So we're coming down to the finish line. Just to go over the things that have been completed are all the research and due diligence that included all the macro space program analysis for all the stakeholders. We've looked at the mobility analysis for the site, urban design, site analysis, land use studies, and the market study. I mentioned that we've had 4 stakeholder work sessions and 3 community work sessions. And where we are now is finalizing the programming and concept and reviewing the existing programs, including leased facilities. We are continuing to meet with the land use team and the executive leadership team. And we are working through county agency and regulatory coordination for getting the entitlement process. Just to refresh you all, I think you're familiar with the site. It is the donut hole in the city of Fairfax. It is a part of the county. It falls under Providence District. It's 47.8 acres. It's currently home to a lot of judicial functions, the courthouse, juvenile detention center, and adult detention center. Recently, as you know, the Massey building came down. That was located here, kind of in the center. So that is now gone. The little white house that was here is also gone. By zoning, current zoning, we would be allowed to build 5.2 million square feet on the site. Our existing gross floor area on site is about 1.44 million square feet, but not all of it's being utilized. What's being utilized is about 1.3. The reason is these two wings here at the back of the old courthouse and the Sally Port are not being used. One of them has severe structural damage, and the other one has some definite maintenance issues that's preventing it from being used. So the actual utilization is about 1.3. We've done a 20-year look ahead to see what our needs would be into the future. And we've estimated that we will need a total of 2 million square feet on the site, which is an increase of about 600,000 to 700,000. Sorry, things keep flipping faster than I want them to. The site stakeholders, the ones in black are currently on the site. The ones in red are new. They are coming from either leased facilities nearby that the county wants to consolidate into county-owned buildings. And then we have a couple of new ones, such as workforce housing. Just graphically to show you where we were when we started the master plan in 2018, the existing conditions, we were 1.3 million, and where we will be our 2020 right now, our projection for the next 20 years to 2040 is about 2 million gross square feet. Some of the key decisions that have been made to date was that the Burkholder site, which is the back portion of the site where the school administration used to be, and it now houses a number of nonprofit agencies that support the courthouse. There's been a decision at the county executive level that that portion of the site will be dedicated to workforce housing, with the possible inclusion of pre-K childcare. There was a bond referendum passed in 2018. I forgot. Sorry, I think it's 2019, that police and fire evidence storage facility would be located on the site in a new facility. They are currently on site in an older building that is not suited, that they've really outgrown. So that is one of our high priorities because they are funded and ready to go. Phasing priority would be given to replacement space over new space or new programs whenever possible. Health department and office for children would possibly locate to the site. They currently are in lease space at the Kelly Square building in the city. We need to get out of that lease. The owner of the building, I believe, is I don't know. There's something going on there, and our lease is up in a couple of years, and we need to pull health department and office for children out of there. There's a new program, diversion and community reentry, that would support the Diversion First program. We want to locate that on the site, and it would be planned for a mid to later phase. We are getting ready to start the feasibility study for that. Another item that was critical is parking. Having convenient and accessible parking for the courthouse is a critical need. We've also been looking at potential commercial uses. with a focus on multi-use and mixed-use buildings along West Street. And I will go into that in a little more detail in a moment. The old courthouse, we want to remove the wings at the back of the old courthouse and the old JDR DC Sally Port in the near term, as I mentioned, due to structural and maintenance concerns. And interestingly enough, when we did our research, we found that the architect who designed those wings back in the late 40s, early 50s, we found board notes where he presented saying that he was designing them so that they could be removed in the future, which we thought was really a remarkable thing for him to think about. So it looks like that's going to come to pass, and we'll have a really nice architectural historic building there surrounded by green space in a park-like setting. A year ago, in June of 2019, we had 3 master plan concepts that we were looking at. They varied from a very suburban in this courthouse square to a very urban, old town type atmosphere. And the one in the middle, Massey Crossing, is kind of a blend of the two. So those were the 2 that we've been working with until this past May. I think it was May. We really pared it down to Massey Crossing and Newtown Old Town. The differences between them, they both can accommodate the 2 million gross square feet. Structured parking would be included in both concepts. Garage B would remain on the site. Garage B is this one here that is backs up to the Fairfax cemetery there. And the one Massey Crossing, the buildings would be a little bit taller and the green space would then be a little larger. Whereas on Newtown Old Town, the buildings would be shorter and the green space would be more compact. This is just a bird's eye view looking at the 2 different plans. Something else that we don't know if you all are aware of, but it's something that we've been grappling with and working with this developer. He is adjacent to our site. This black line here is the property line between the judicial complex and the city of Fairfax. This is privately owned property in the city. And a developer has consolidated the 3 parcels. It's the Wells Fargo Bank, a restaurant, and a small office building. And he is proposing to put a hotel and a performing arts center on the site. The city of Fairfax is very excited about it. We have some mixed feelings about it. We think it'll be a great activation to our site and to this corner of going into the judicial complex. But we are very concerned about the massing and the size of it. It's actually 10 stories in height, and we feel it really overshadows the historic jail here and the old courthouse, which is right here. So we've been, the city of Fairfax planning folks and the county planning staff have been working together with the developer. We have given him a set of comments. We are waiting for him to come back in. But I did want to share with you that we are adjacent to this rather large project. We are working with him to do some shared amenities such as a road through here, an access road, and development of a public plaza on the corner. I wanted to let you know some of the stakeholder and community meeting feedback that we've received. There was a slight preference for the Massey Crossing master plan concept. That was the one that I showed you on the left that has the larger green space. The Diversion and Community Reentry Center advocates would really like that facility to be phased sooner rather than later. There was a lot of positive reaction to the visual connection between the two courthouses, the old courthouse and the current new courthouse along West Street. Lots of concern expressed about the hotel and performing arts development. And of course, the police are concerned about anything that will delay their project because they are funded and ready to go. Parking for the courthouse is always a critical concern. We did get a lot of favorable reaction in our community meetings for the workforce housing on the Burkholder site, and also for the Diversion and Community Reentry Center. There's also additional traffic impacts and wayfinding. That's always a concern. There was a lot of support for use of the green space, especially during court off hours, and then a lot of commentary, positive about preservation of the historic resources on the site. As we move forward, we're continuing our coordination with the executive leadership team. We're working on finalizing the selected master plan. We're just about there. We should have it by the end of this month. We're trying to blend the best aspects of both of those two concepts into one master plan. We will be working on a phased implementation plan and figuring out the costs for all the facilities and the infrastructure over the next 20 years to make it a reality. And in October, the master plan final report will be available. And we will continue with our CIP implementation strategy. And we've also been just recently been asked to go ahead and put the entitlement effort costs together. And we're hoping that that'll get approved at carryover so that we can move forward with the entitlement process, which would be a CDPA, PCA, and a partial FDPA for the police evidence storage, hopefully at the beginning of the year. And I think that's it.
Okay, well, thank you very much for the presentation.
I can.
And I will ask if members of the board would make some comments, and I will go through the list alphabetically as in the past. Ms. Aubrey.
Thank you. I do have some questions about the old removal of the wings of the old courthouse. I know you mentioned something, but I had a hard time understanding it. The transmission over the waves, airwaves, wasn't very good. So if you could maybe re-discuss that, because I know that the old jail, you know, we recently had presentations about work that's being done to preserve the old jail, which is fabulous. And I'm just wondering, why is there a proposal to remove the wings of the old courthouse as opposed to repairing them and then using those buildings in some adaptive reuse?
Okay, first let me get some nomenclature correct. We have the historic jail, which is the small building that faces Main Street. And then we have the old jail wing, which is on the back of the old courthouse. So that's one of the wings. The other wing is was office space for juvenile court and courtrooms, small courtrooms that were abandoned when they moved over to the courthouse, the new courthouse expansion. The old jail wing, we believe that it was damaged during the earthquake that we had almost, what, 10 years ago? Has it been about 10 years? to 10 years roughly.
2012 is when it happened.
That whole wing has pulled away from the old courthouse, and we have had to abandon it. We've gotten it was still being used, even though there were still really old jail cells in there, but they were storing stuff, and the sheriff had some programs in the basement, and they also had a little museum in there. We've abandoned that wing because of the structural damage that was done. And there really isn't, it's full of lead paint, it's full of asbestos. There really is no good reason to save that wing or to try and reuse it. We feel that it'll be much more beneficial and make the old courthouse a more prominent feature on the site if this is surrounded by a green space and those wings are removed. We want to make it more like a park and more like a jewel that sits at the corner between the county and the city.
So basically then you're saying that the wings of these two wings, they're not original to the building of the old courthouse? Were they added on at some point much later in the history of the courthouse?
Yes, they were added on in the, I believe it was the 1950s, early 1950s. And we have board minutes that'll be part of the final master plan report that actually there were the architect, when he presented it to the Board of Supervisors back then, said he was designing it so they could be removed, which we just thought was hilarious. I mean, it was just an interesting little tidbit of history. And we would, of course, we've been asked if we do remove them by the history and archaeological folks to document both wings so that we would have that in our archives for history purposes.
Thank you for clarifying that, because I just really didn't understand in the earlier presentation about the notes that had been discovered, and also thank you for the clarification.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Aubrey. And Mr. Daniel.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Ms. Aubrey kind of illuminated to some of the questions I had there around that, just because I think I lost some of that translation over the internet. I would love to see the minutes that show that they were designed to be removed, not because I don't believe you, but because I think that's amazing that we are about to, if we're going to remove them, because that we say that all the time in preservation, and I don't feel like I'm ever alive to see it happen. So.
I know. Well, we were all astounded when
So it would be merely
found those.
It would be merely fascinating to see in that sense. I do appreciate that we're going to document it, though, because it is part of the building's history. Yes. I agree with the apprehensiveness concerning the hotel. That seems rather like presenting as the developers designing it as a fairly large looming structure. So, I mean, obviously we don't have, I mean, that's something that we're not really having purview over, but I kind of want to share that sentiment that not done correctly, it could definitely detract in some ways from some of the things being proposed here. But that's all the comments I have at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Daniel. Ms. Huang?
Yes, thank you so much for the presentation. I just have one comment for that 10-story building, proposed 10-story building next to the jailhouse. it's really a big messing, and perhaps it probably already been brought up. If in trade with building footprint over story height and give some setback to the street, well, give the jailhouse a little bit more breathing room. That probably will help. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Kalinsky.
All right, thank you, Mr. Burns. I'm encouraged by what I see. I like what I see. If only for the reason that hotel will possibly be built at that 10-story area, it would seem that the Massey Crossing concept might be a better fit with the taller buildings and more open space. So that's my only real contribution here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kalinsky. Elise Murray?
I have to admit that as soon as I read page 12 of the slideshow, I fired off an email to my fellow member of the History Commission, the Mayor of Fairfax, asking him, "Are you serious about this?" I haven't gotten a response yet. I too think it's totally out of scale. I lean toward the Massey Crossing approach too, because you get the green space, and it strikes me as if when you're housing county agencies, the more space together, the better. And it strikes me as if in the new town, old town approach, you might have people broken up, and somebody goes to the wrong office if something will get confused. So I prefer the Massey Crossing. Thank you. I think it looks good.
Thank you, Ms. Murray. Ms. Orr?
I don't have anything to add. I think everyone is making great comments.
Okay, Mr. Zellman's left. Okay, then it falls to me as to have the last word in all of this. From what people have said before, I will be a little firmer. I am appalled at the proposed mass of the hotel and performing space. I think that will overwhelm the historic jail, and it will overwhelm the church that's across the street from it. I'm stunned that the city of Fairfax would allow such a large structure in that particular location in a very sensitive historical area within the city. I can't speak for them, but Elise, thank you for emailing the mayor. That's really quite something. I'm a little concerned that it seems to be a fait accompli because your Newtown, Old Town, and Massey Crossing both seem to align with an axis that goes through the proposed new development that's on private land. Ms. Swan's suggestion about a land swap or some sort of a horse trade that might allow that massing to be reduced, I think would be in everyone's best interest. But that's a big object in a fairly steeply sloped part of the site, if I remember my topography correctly. And so that will make it even more overwhelming in scale because of the slope of the site. That's a primary concern of mine. You had mentioned that the police evidence and storage, which I believe originally was the police administration building, is going to be replaced. And I noticed that it disappeared on the maps. You didn't make any mention about that. That is something you might want to consider as a heritage resource. It's a Vosbeck building, if my memory serves me correctly. If you walk in the front door and you look to the right, there's a plaque on the wall, I believe, that lists the architect designers. Vosbeck did an awful lot of work for the county of Fairfax, including the design for the Massey building. And bit by bit, the county seems to be chewing away at the heritage that he has left in the form of his work. So I'd be concerned about the loss of that building. It's a handsome mid-century building. I agree that it's a small scale building. I agree that it's probably not adequate for the police evidence storage. But I do think it's something that you just can't dismiss as something simply in the way of development. With regard to the removal, what I assume is parking lot A, parking garage A, the one that was directly behind the Massey building. I applaud that. But I wonder, where will people park while all this construction is underway if that thing is torn down? It's a fairly massive structure. I also note that currently Garage B has an elevated covered walkway that leads from there to the Judicial Center. I don't see that in the renderings, and I'm wondering how people, is there a safe, accessible path for people to get from that garage to the Judicial Center in either the Massey Crossing or Newtown Old Town proposal? It's there, and what's going to happen to that, and how can people move around? Also, in general, I think I would favor the Massey Crossing plan. Also notice that, or I will observe that it's impossible to build underground parking under the parkland there. And so I would imagine that you might be able to create a fairly massive underground parking structure in that location if you make use of excavated parking facilities underneath the on-grade landscape. Those were the questions that I had, and thank you very much for your presentation. We look forward to seeing this thing as it moves forward, and good luck with working with the city of Fairfax in that privately owned site there. Have you considered eminent domain? No, I'm serious.
Yeah, that would be nice. I'd be more than happy to come back to you all maybe in a month and show you the final master plan concept.
That would be wonderful.
Final, how it's developed between these two. I think you might enjoy seeing that. So if Laura wants to schedule us to come back, we can do that.
I would welcome that and would be happy to invite you back and talk to us further as this moves forward. One question is, you noted that you had several stakeholder meetings and community meetings and such. Are you holding those in a virtual environment now?
The last two, the last stakeholder meeting and the last community meeting were held virtually via Zoom. We had about 100 attendees at each of those. And how we did that, we had the first like 20 minutes was a presentation made by the architect. And then people were broken up into groups of about 15 to 20 people. And we had leaders who led those groups through different exercises and questions. And then we all came back together for the last half hour to share what we discussed in each of our groups. So that's how we held our virtual meetings and gathered data that we needed so that we could finish the master plan. That's
okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you bringing this to our attention. Is it possible for you to share with us the PowerPoint presentation?
Yes.
Or Laura, do I not remember that it was not on the SharePoint site?
I sent a copy to Laura if she, and I can also, I can upload it to either our website, project website, or Laura, if you have a way to distribute it, you're welcome to do that.
Yeah, Ellen, I think because this was you kind of decided you were going to come very late in the game. I don't think that made it to ShareFile. So I can upload it to ShareFile if you'd like to see it, John.
Laura,
Laura,
it is on the share file.
Okay, it's there. Okay.
I just found that, yes, it's under presentation items in the file folder you shared with us. It is there. My apologies.
It was one of the additions to the share file that was made after the share file was initially sent to us.
Right, because the presentations are really applicants to put up and really for staff to be able to get the presentations as a backup from staff. So we're really trying to have the applicants do the presentations, but have a backup file for staff in case for whatever reason we can't get the applicants to get it to work. So it's really supposed to be just a backup option. That's why they're there. But you have it, so there it is.
Yeah, it is there. It may not have been there earlier, but it is there today, and I downloaded it today. So that's thank you, Elise, for discovering that. I appreciate it. Okay, moving along. We're back into board and staff items now. And the first thing is review and action on approval of the June 2020 minutes. And with that goes hand in hand, it's approval of payment to our recording secretary.
So I will say, John, that we do not need to do the approval to pay the recording secretary because he was basically paid twice for the March minutes. So we're just going to carry that over
Okay.
due to an admin error on our part. So he has graciously accepted that he got paid already for the minutes, for the June minutes.
Okay, then I will entertain a motion for approval of the June 2020 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB approve the June 2020 minutes.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, second by Mr. Kowinski. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of approving the 2020 minutes as presented, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Hearing no nays, motion carries. Laura, the
Thanks.
treasurer's report?
Sure. The June 30th balance for the ARB was $15,000. I'm sorry, $15,014.95. So 15,014.95.
Okay.
And
that was June 30th, you said?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, then administrative. We have a need to have a motion for Colvin Run Mill maintenance needs.
Yeah, so Colvin Run Mill is doing some maintenance on the mill and the actual mill and then the mill structure. So they gave a letter and I've uploaded it to ShareFile and they wanted to make sure that those changes were okay. Most of them were in kind. It was just general maintenance on the mill.
Okay, so is there a draft motion on that?
Yes,
There is, Mr. Chairman. I'd be happy to make it.
Mr. Daniel, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB approve administrative item number 1, the proposal to complete exterior repairs on the historic Colvin Run Mill located in the Colvin Run Mill Historic Overlay District as submitted for July 9th, 2020 ARB meeting. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet the requirements of zoning ordinance 7-200 historic overlay districts.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second for this motion?
I can second.
Okay, that was
Okay.
Kay. Ms. Zord, thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion to approve the Colvin Run Mill maintenance repairs, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Hearing no nays, motion carries. Okay, discussion and update reports. We've got rezoning cases and homes run acres.
Okay, there was a number of development review that have come in. They've slowed down a little bit, but please review those. And if you have any that you want to comment on, let me know. I also uploaded the Section 106 cases that have come in, and we got a bunch of new telecom in the last week or so that you will see for next month's meeting. But that's basically it for those two. Homes Run, Nicole is going to give just a brief update on Homes Run Acres.
Yeah, so I think last month I talked about that we're starting to move forward with the evaluating it for a potential historic overlay district. So right now we are currently planning our first work group meeting in August. And so it'll be similar to Holland Hills, at least starting out. And we're going to plan for 6 work group meetings with citizens and residents of Homes Run Acres. Then we've got 2 history commissioners that have volunteered to be on the group, which is Elise, thank you, Elise, and Mike Irwin. And then Kay has volunteered from the ARB. So we would like to have one more ARB member that would sit on the group. Just kind of give us your knowledge, some background information, just help us out as we go through the process. You don't have to answer right now, but I will probably reach out to everybody in the next week and just let you think about it. But like I said, it's one meeting a month for about 6 months. So it's only about 2 hours. And for right now, it's just going to be virtual. We don't have any plans to meet in person. We usually will send out any information that we want to talk about at each meeting 2 weeks before. So that way you'll be up to speed for the conversation. So just think about that. And if you do want to send me an email tomorrow morning right away, let me know. That'd be great. If not, I'll check in with you guys this week. So.
Hi, Nicole. I'm happy to join the group.
Oh, great. Well, there we go. Awesome. I will add you to our list and I'll keep you updated as we move forward.
Thank you.
You just need 2 people, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, well.
John was chomping at the bit.
You gotta be fast, man.
That's okay.
All right.
So that was Kay and Samantha.
Hey, John, before you move to correspondence, I have a request for an update from Laura.
Okay. Mr. Daniel?
Laura, do we have any update on the Reston inventory efforts?
Yes. I talked to Denise. Well, Denise is here. I don't know if she wants to talk. But
you might have to unmute her.
I know. Yeah, Denise, are you there?
She's still logged on.
I saw her. I know. She might have stepped away. Oh. Okay, I'll try to make her a panelist and see if that helps. Hey, Denise, are you there?
I am.
Hi. Okay, good. You're still here. If you want to give a quick update, I know I got an email update from you, but
yeah, just a brief update. So the Reston survey was put on hold because of the COVID. But they have given the contractor, the consultant, an extension until September, and she is on track to complete the survey and report by September.
Okay. I might, when we get to new news, I might need more information on that.
Sure.
I have another thing, as long as we're talking about update reports. Do we have an update on the guidelines?
Oh, John, I forgot about that. Good question.
Yes, so I don't have an update other than we reached out to the consultant, EHT Traceries, and we're waiting to hear a response back from them. Unfortunately, that project took kind of a big step to the back burner with everything that went on. And especially since the next steps in that project would be to start community meetings and outreach to the community and kind of a notification effort. So we're still waiting to hear back from them, but we will hopefully be able to give you an update next month.
Okay, do they need an extension of their period of performance?
Yeah, I looked at the contract today and it's through September 2020, so they most likely will. I think it started September 19th. I'm sorry, September 2019. But we're working with DPE to see if we need to get an extension. We most likely will need an extension on that contract. But
I think that would be prudent so that it's not rushed at the end.
Right. Yeah, I have emails in as of today. Yeah, we brought that up the other day. So yes, I will. Okay. We have an update for you next month.
Okay, thank you. Any other updates from other folks? Okay, we can move on then. Correspondence and announcements.
Let's see. I don't have just trying to think of anything else. Oh, and Nicole, maybe I don't want to spring this in, but the Exceptional Design Awards I know are happening next week. I know Kay's working on that.
What did you say when they're happening?
Are they happening next week? Are you having your meeting? No. Okay.
No, I haven't. We know that they're happening. They just decided that they're going to do it. Obviously, July is usually when they're doing the awards and stuff. So I just talked to Marcia, who runs it every year, Wednesday. And so they're trying to figure everything out, but Kay may know more than I do. So
Okay.
I don't have any more information. I haven't heard anything more from Marcia.
Okay. I know it usually happens in July. That's why I brought it up. So I didn't know I know it's probably gonna be delayed a little bit. But that's okay. All right. Well, we'll get an update on that later.
Okay.
Trying to think of anything else. Something. All right. Go ahead, and I'll think of it in a minute.
Actually, if I could add something to the Exceptional Design Awards. The Exceptional Design Awards takes Fairfax County projects from the AIA Northern Virginia Design Awards program. That program was delayed, and they didn't receive all of their applications, I don't think, until June 23rd. And that would have been earlier, and it would have been easy to transfer those applications to the county program. So that may be part of the reason why the Fairfax County Exceptional Design Awards jury is delayed. Not just—
John, you need to name your source. Just kidding.
I need to name my source?
Name your source.
Oh, for that information?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I happen to cohabitate with the executive director of AIA Northern Virginia, my wife Debbie. And so yes, I've been living through AIA Northern Virginia Design Awards delays, transferring to an online jury, and transferring to an online awards gala. And so that's taken an awful lot of planning and coordination and stuff like that. So I say yes, I was well aware of that. I should have thought of that earlier, but I did not.
No, it's okay. Okay, that's all. I don't really have anything else to put up. And then old business, I know. Well,
what about the BOS motion? What's that?
Oh, yes. Okay, that's what I was going to know. Okay. So the Board of Supervisors did the motion about the Confederate names in the county, and Denise is actually point person on that. If she wants to speak, that's fine, or she can jump in. But basically, they've tasked the History Commission with creating some sort of inventory of everything in. And I forgot the list.
Statues and monuments, correct?
No, but public places and other things.
Oh,
it's not just street statues and monuments. It's like a
well,
whole,
I didn't know.
whole gambit. And it's much more broad. So the History Commission actually met about it last week, and Elise, you feel free to chime in too, but they're working on, they gave them a deadline of December 2020 to compile this list. So they're diligently working on that and trying to get that done.
I can answer any questions if anybody has them.
I mean, that was interesting to know that it's going beyond street names, monuments, and statues. I didn't know it was going to be even more expansive. I had heard about it in the updates. So.
Yes, anything publicly owned or under public purview.
Gotcha. Well, if there's nothing on that, I do have an announcement since we are in announcements, I guess. So I was contacted by Supervisor Alcorn today, and he asked me to actually be on the Reston Comprehensive Plan Task Force. So you guys may remember from a previous series of meetings that Samantha and I met with the supervisor's staff along with our armada of staff, Laura, Nicole, Denise, and others. And it was quite a meeting, and it happened pretty much, I would say, right before, obviously, the pandemic and everything. It was a really productive meeting. We talked about soapstone and other things, but the supervisor offered an opportunity for us to be on the task force. And then obviously everything kind of happened with COVID-19. And I think there was a bit of a mix up there because the task force has met 4 times now. And once Laura and them had brought that to my attention, I think there was some back channel communication, and I was going to bring it up to y'all that we were kind of missed, but the supervisor's office and his staff have stepped up. And Samantha, the supervisor, called me today. I don't know if he reached out to you as well, but he directly reached out to me and his staff And I know when you and I had talked, you had asked that I kind of take the forefront position on it. So I accepted his offer. They meet every other Monday. So there's going to be a meeting this coming Monday. They're right now just kind of looking at some of their visioning statements for certain things. So I think even though they've been meeting a little, that doesn't mean that I'm missing the boat yet. I can still jump across the dock and land on the vessel. And I think all of you know that I'm not a very soft-spoken fella, so I'm sure if I have thoughts, I'll share them. So that's exciting. I kind of have to reiterate what Laura brought up before in the past about this. This is really a big step from the Board of Supervisors, just really reaching out to try to help us be involved more in these things. So I'm excited to see what could come of it.
Well, Christopher, thank you for stepping up and agreeing to undertake that responsibility. I'm sure you will be an effective advocate on our behalf. And I'm delighted that the invitation was extended.
As am I. Thank you for your confidence.
Any further old business or other new business? Okay.
I don't have anything else.
Okay.
John, I do have a question, I guess, for Laura and maybe Nicole and them. What is the county's plan for this format? How long do we envision this? Because I know there's all these different phases and stages everything's in right now. I'm in a stage with my agency. I know the county's in a certain stage, the state's in a certain stage. It's not that I'm looking, I think we're finally getting the hang of this. I think this meeting went better than the last one, and I think we've got a little bit more of it down, but I'm just curious, how long is this the normal? And what have you heard anything about that?
All I heard you say was motion to adjourn. No, I'm just kidding. The county physically has entered phase 3. So Fairfax County, not the government, but Fairfax County is physically in phase 3, according to the state. We, as of, I think it was July 1st, we're in phase 3. So we got very quick emails back and forth and changing information almost hourly that the offices, not offices, the buildings would start opening to the public on a limited basis. So that doesn't mean all staff is coming back or the public's allowed in all the time, but that we are supposed to be available for a limited time for the public. Now that's an ever evolving conversation. As of an hour ago, it changed again. So we are open, and we have been open the entire time, but they're calling it assistance from a distance is their slogan. So they're trying to do as much virtual as we can. Personally, and I think that most people would agree, this is probably a good venue to keep going as long as we can. And I don't know, we all don't know how long this is going to last, but if we feel comfortable that this is effective, I would say until we have so we have the all clear, that we would keep meeting like this. I will say too, on, I think it's the 14th, the Board of Supervisors is actually meeting in person. So that's a change, but we have been kind of counseled to keep as many meetings as we can remote until further notice. So it's a long-winded answer.
I just wanted to make, from my perspective, I wanted to be aware if there was going to be a change. And I kind of agree, and I won't speak for any of the other members, but I agree that I like the cautious approach and that this is fine for now. The fact that my agency doesn't have anyone yet in the office and we're not even in phase 2, I just wanted to, I didn't want to be surprised by a sudden, hey, everybody, guess what? We're at the government center in August.
I will let you know as soon as I know something.
Understood.
But I would prefer to keep it as virtual as long as we are able, and not forever, of course, but because of the unreliable nature, and I think of the cautious approach that we all have different circumstances and different risks for health and family and things like that, that it doesn't really make sense if this is effective to to change it unless absolutely required. And it seems like you said, I think this meeting went a lot better. We had a lot of
Kudos to
hiccups the last
you and Nicole. I think you guys do a fantastic job running this.
And Kira as well. She's in the background kind of.
Oh, that's
helping
true.
us
That's true.
check things
Kira
out.
as well. Yes, hiding in the background.
But yes, thank you for that. I mean, I think last month was a big learning curve, and I think we're a lot more comfortable with it now. It's not perfect, but I think we're able to have a successful ARB meeting on this platform. So we'll just kind of keep operating as is. But if you feel like something needs to change, please let Nicole or myself know, and we'll try to do our best to accommodate it. Limited resources we have, but we'll try our best. So.
I would certainly second that. I will note I'm in the federal government, like Christopher is, and the Department of the Interior is moving back to work, is what they're officially saying. But the reality is it's the political appointees who are going back to work. And what I was told by my associate director, which is down from the director of the Park Service, just this week, we will continue to what they call aggressively telework for the foreseeable future. Don't expect to come back to work before fall. So so there's the political move to reopen things, the public visibility aspect of reopening, and the practical aspect of people doing their jobs in a very uncertain environment. Those are two separate but interlinked issues that we're all going to have to deal with. So just keep your eye on the prize that is appropriate for your circumstances, and I think we'll be fine in the long run.
Yeah.
I will again second Christopher's thanks to the county team for putting this all on. Thanks for Denise too for hanging in there until answering a question at the very, very end after being silent all the meeting. I appreciate that. And I would entertain a motion for adjournment. Anyone?
I think.
Can I second?
Okay, I think there was a motion for adjournment. A motion for adjournment is always in order. It does not need a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Enjoy the
Bye.
rest of July.
Bye.
Stay safe.
And, Ciao.